Immortal Cultivation begins with time management. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyright or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 176. People in Shushan just got off the flying sword. After returning to the room, Luoyang began to sort out what he had gained from the 3-island treasure ship secret realm. First, the acquisition of the bodybuilding secret technique and the breakthrough of the marrow washing realm. With the bodybuilding secret technique of the clan, Luoyang could naturally shorten the marrow washing time and then suddenly enter the waffle level one day. There would be a legal basis that would not arouse suspicion. Secondly, it was all kinds of ancient array knowledge. Modern arrays tend to focus on simplicity and hugeness, such as the mountain protection array, the sect array, and the array flag hubs, which are often thousands and thousands, following a simple and clear structural order. However, the ancient arrays in Gaikyu often focus on complexity and integration. For example, the Gaikyu array, which has an extremely huge amount of information, the array setter deliberately depicts its majestic body in the high-dimensional plane, and only reveals a shallow tip of the iceberg in the two-dimensional plane. Perhaps the ancient monks thought this was more impressive. In fact, from Luoyang's point of view, both should be said to have their own advantages and disadvantages. The simplicity and size of modern formations make them easy to learn and maintain. This is also based on the large-scale loss of the Taoism after the demise of the Nanjiri sects. After all, those formations that are not easy to learn have almost all been extinct. The complexity and integration of ancient formations make them difficult to crack, and on the other hand, they are also easy to use in battle. There is even an ancient book that records many formations that can be carried with you. Luoyang has decided to design a set of formations for himself when he has time. The final harvest is this cunning universe creation Tianyu divine shuttle. It is pitch black and dull, and its outline looks like a narrower and longer rugby ball. There is nothing else except a row of immortal seals engraved at a certain angle. The current function of this thing is to travel. The flying speed is faster than flying a sword, and the consumption of true essence is also less than flying a sword. More importantly, in many secret realms where you can't fly a sword, this thing can also achieve space jumps, so as to reach places that cannot be reached by feet. Elder Shiding said that this magic weapon contained 3 seals, and Luoyang had some guesses. Perhaps these 3 seals correspond to the cunning universe and creation in front of the Tianyu divine shuttle, and each time a seal is unlocked, a name will be fulfilled. Of course, this is just a guess. Jin, it's time to reload and go to Shushan. Okay, are you going to see senior sister Anne? Jin asked casually. Shut up, I just came back from Gaikyu and want to take a break. Luoyang said coldly. Jin smiled but said nothing, knowing that Luoyang didn't know how to treat Shilili now. After all, in Gaikyu, the relationship between the two had developed to the point of being almost intimate, so he wanted to find a place to calm down. Point 2. Shushan King Sect, King Luo Peak. Character identity: Ling Yunpo. Mirror Flower Water Moon template is overwritten, and he is traveling through time and space. Back to Shushan King Luo Peak, Ling Yunpo lifted the meditation posture from the stone bed, stood up and put on the sword box. Master. Lady Jian shouted immediately, are we going to practice swordplay? I haven't had a sword fight with senior sister for a long time. How can it be a long time? Ling Yunpo thought to himself, for me, it's been a long time. But for you, it's just one day of not seeing each other in a demon-locking tower. Thinking of this, he suddenly remembered that Anzisu's natal sword, the Frost Sword, had been shattered by a dragon in the Golden Core Realm in order to protect herself in the demon-locking tower. Now senior sister can only temporarily use the cold sword left by Master Sujian. Although it is also a water-based flying sword, it is not a natal sword after all, and its power and maneuverability are weaker. Well, I still have to find a new sword for senior sister. The flying smoke sword that King Ping's sword mentioned last time is in the South China Sea. Before collecting the necessary information, there is no chance to go there for the time being. However, maybe I can go to the sword pond to find a sword for senior sister as a transition. Thinking of this, Ling Yunpo set off for the sword pond. Shushan Sword Pond is located at the top of Tianmen Peak and is also that gateway to the Shushan King sect. Every disciple who wants to become an immortal must climb up Tianmen Peak in his mortal body. There are not only steps more than 1 meter high in many places along the way, but also sections where you need to climb the rock wall and cross the cliff. If you are not careful, you will fall to your death. Ling Yunpo drove the thunder sword and circled over Tianmen Peak. He saw several mortals climbing the mountain road. They seemed to be dressed like Jiangu disciples. He couldn't help but sigh with emotion. He landed near the sword pond. Immediately, 2 guarding disciples on duty came forward and asked, "You are here to take the sword, you are, Poon Sword Immortal?" Another disciple hurriedly said with a smile, "Brother Poon, please come this way." Ling Yunpo. What the hell is Brother Poon? Who sent me the wrong name? He was too lazy to argue with the 2 strange disciples. He just walked through the 2 people with a cold face and came to the side of the sword pond. Stimulating the natural talent of sword bone, Ling Yunpo began to try to resonate with the water in the pool. But this time, there was no gushing of thousands of swords as there was last time when he took the Kingping sword. Not long after, a flying sword broke through the water and landed in his palm. 9th Order Earth-type flying sword. Kingping sword said lazily. 9th Order ones won't work. Senior Sister Am's transitional flying sword must be at least 10th Order. Ling Yunpo said with regret, throwing the flying sword back into the pool. Then it began to resonate again and pulled out a new flying sword. 9th Order wood-type flying sword. Kingping sword replied again. Wood-type ones are not suitable for Senior Sister. Ling Yunpo threw the sword again, and then resonated again. 8th Order fire-type flying sword. Kingping sword said calmly. Why is the rank getting lower and lower? Ling Yunpo said angrily, throwing the flying sword into the pool. Kingping, didn't you have any girlfriends in the pool? Is there anyone willing to respond to my call? No. Kingping sword laughed. Even among the 10th rank flying swords, not all immortal swords have sword spirits. What are you thinking about? Without a sword spirit, summoning a flying sword from this sword pool is purely a matter of fate. Kunlun Mirror also echoed. Ling Yunpo's face was cold, and he continued to summon more than 10 flying swords, but none of them was a 10th rank flying sword. It was so scarce that it was no wonder that after he summoned Kingping sword, it was immediately snatched away by Ziyun Peak. Forget it, I still have to get it from other channels. This public pool is just unreliable. Ling Yunpo turned around and left the sword pool. He was about to fly back to King Luo Peak on his sword, when he suddenly saw Yuanqinyu landing. Yuanqinyu, one of the 4 great masters of Shushan, the eldest sister at Quizu Peak, the Broken Moon Sword Fairy, is usually surrounded by many junior brothers and sisters when she appears. This time, she was alone, with only one person flying a sword, Sima Changyan, who was the 5th place in the last Shushan competition. In short, please consider it, Senior Sister Yuan. Sima Changyan just said a sentence, and when she saw Ling Yunpo below, she immediately shut up. Yuanqinyu was not so wary, but just greeted Ling Yunpo with a smile. Isn't this junior brother Poon? Why, are you here to find a new flying sword in the sword pool? Can I call me Ling Yunpo? Ling Yunpo said helplessly. Chapter 177. Clever junior brother persuades stubborn senior sister for you. What is this? An invitation. On the first day of next month, the sword tomb will be opened in the Yuan clan's territory in Jianshu County. You're invited to come. Sword Tomb. Ling Yunpo looked at the invitation and felt inexplicably tired. What kind of secret realm is this? Puchi. Yuanqinyu laughed out loud, while Sima Changyan next to him was speechless and explained, what secret realm? The Sword Tomb is the residence of the Yuan family's ancestor. After my ancestor ascended to heaven, he stayed in the clan's territory and stayed in the Sword Tomb all year round. Yuanqinyu had laughed enough, so he patiently added, he only opens the door occasionally. Every time the ancestor opens the door, our Yuan family will invite many new sword-fighting talents in the world to go to the Yuan family's territory to meet the ancestor. After all, the Yuan family's ancestor is an immortal, and has infinite attainments in the sword. Even if it's just a casual tip, it's enough to benefit you infinitely. Sima Changyan said with emotion, looking at Ling Yunpo with envy. To be able to get an invitation from the Longsig Yuan family is the dream of many sword cultivators. I see, thank you for your kindness, Senior Sister Yuan. Ling Yunpo solemnly accepted the invitation. By the way, here is another one. Yuanqinyu took out another invitation. It's for Senior Sister Am, please pass it on to Junior Brother Lim. Let me pass it on? Ling Yunpo asked in confusion, thinking why didn't you give it to her directly? Senior Sister An and I had some misunderstandings in the past. Yuanqinyu saw his doubts and smiled and said, if I go by myself, she might not even accept the invitation, so I can only trouble Junior Brother Lim. Even if it's a huge misunderstanding, it's an invitation from the Yuan family after all. Sir Chang Yan shook his head, obviously not believing that senior sister would be willing to refuse. The two exchanged a few more pleasantries with Ling Yunpo before flying away on their swords. Ling Yunpo went down the mountain to buy wine and meat in the market, and then returned to King Luo Peak, where he saw Nzisu sitting on the swing, somewhat bored, swinging slowly by the rope. After losing her natal sword, senior sister even stopped doing her daily sword practice morning lessons, which made Ling Yunpo very worried. Senior sister, I went to buy beef tendons and the best osmanthus wine today. He raised the wine and food in his hand and gestured, want to eat some? Nzisu raised her head, then showed a gentle smile, nodded and said, okay. The two sat down by the pavilion, and Ling Yunpo enthusiastically poured wine for senior sister. Senior sister, drink this cup first. Nzisu picked up the wine glass and drank it all in one gulp. The wine entered her heart, and she immediately became drunk, and her vision was a little unclear. She hurriedly and quietly circulated her true energy to refine all the alcohol in her stomach, and instantly she was like nothing happened. Ling Yunpo poured himself another glass of wine and drank it happily. He felt that the alcohol content was not high, but it was sweet and refreshing, which was very comfortable. He propped up the small earthenware pot on the stone table with a copper stove, added a lot of fine firewood and lit it. Soon the earthenware pot made a gurgling sound. Ling Yunpo opened the lid of the pot like offering a treasure, and Nzisu saw the shiny taro and the beef tendon that had been stewed well in advance rolling in the steaming hot marinade. Even though she had been fasting for a long time, she still couldn't help but be tempted when she saw this. She reached in with chopsticks and picked up a piece. She chewed it carefully and ate it, and her eyes lit up. The two of them feasted on the wine and food. After eating and drinking, seeing that the senior sister squinted comfortably, Ling Yunpo took out Yuan Jinyu's invitation. When Nzisu saw the invitation, his face immediately fell and he frowned and said, I don't want to go to her house. I heard that the ancestor of the Yuan family is at the level of an immortal. Ling Yunpo advised patiently, a few casual pointers will be of great help to the growth of our swordsmanship. Even if it helps, I won't go. Nzisu turned his back and said unhappily, after all, it is her clan land. Who knows what traps are set in it? Why do you say that, senior sister? Ling Yunpo pretended to be surprised. How did Yuan Jinyu offend senior sister before? I didn't offend her directly, it's just that she and I don't like each other. Nzisu sighed and said, she has always liked to speak in a roundabout way, in a sarcastic way. She thinks she is humorous, but in fact she is mean. How do you think my title of grass-cutting sword immortal came from? It was first spread from Qizu Peak. She caused me so much trouble, and she was still secretly proud of it. Ling Yunpo was speechless, thinking that the nickname of Poon Sword Immortal seemed to come from Yuan Jinyu. Is this guy a nickname maker? He likes to give people nicknames so much. How about I give you one someday? Anyway, I don't want to go. Nzisu finally said, if you want to go, go by yourself, but try to have less contact with her. Senior sister. Ling Yunpo sighed, do you remember what I told you last time? What? If King Luo Peak wants to get rid of its current predicament, it is not advisable to practice blindly in seclusion. It must also pay attention to making connections and developing allies. Of course I know that. Nzisu said helplessly, Jingan Peak is divided into mountains and Wanglong Peak is divided into seas. If I meet them by chance on the road, I will say hello to them. But Yuan Jinyu is the only one I really don't want to pay attention to. I find her annoying. So saying hello is considered making connections. Ling Yunpo began to have a headache for his senior sister's emotional intelligence. They are different. What's the difference? In terms of swordsmanship, Yuan Jinyu may not be as good as Lin Yulanzhen and Yuan Fanhai. Ling Yunpo analyzed, but don't forget that the Longsig Yuan family, generations of swordsmen, have a huge influence in the Shanqing sect of Shushan. In terms of extensive connections, these two people combined are probably not as good as Yuan Jinyu. Nzisu was silent for a long time, but she couldn't refute it. Of course, she knew that Yuan Jinyu had a wide network of contacts in Shushan, or it would be strange if he couldn't be good at dealing with people with his hypocritical character. When Master Su Jian was still around, he used to set an example and taught her to be happy with revenge. If you meet someone you don't like, just kill him with a sword. Although Nzisu didn't do it completely, she was still influenced by it, and usually liked to be straightforward. For people like Yuan Jinyu who have both status and strength, and who refuse to give in even after winning the duel, she tried to avoid contact, but never thought of pretending to be nice to him and maintaining a superficial harmonious relationship. At this time, Ling Yunpo advised her to be smooth, and she subconsciously resisted. However, after thinking about it, Zisu had to admit that the truth of her junior brother was indeed impeccable. The master taught her to be happy with her enemies, but now she has fallen into the life and death retreat. It can be seen that being straightforward is not necessarily a good thing. Compared with listening to the master, what she should do more is to maintain the Taoist lineage of King Luo Peak, otherwise, when the master comes out of retreat, how can she face him? And to maintain the Taoist lineage, it is indispensable to be smooth, as the junior brother said. After thinking it over, Zisu finally made up her mind, closed her eyes, sighed and said, "I know, junior brother, I will accompany you." "That's great." Ling Yunpo nodded with satisfaction, and suddenly something was wrong. "Hey, it's obviously to make connections, why did it become accompany me?" Chapter 178. The Yuan family patriarch has decided. Time soon came to the first day of the next month. At first, Zisu was in the mood to eat and drink, and taught Ling Yunpo swordsmanship when he was practicing swordsmanship, but as time got closer, she seemed a little irritable. On the morning of the first day of the new year, Ling Yunpo changed into a robe and left the room to call her senior sister. As a result, after knocking on the door for a long time, Zisu refused to come out, just saying, "I don't feel well today and I won't go." Ling Yunpo was furious. "You were a cultivator, and you told me I don't feel well today, do you think I'm a fool?" He pinched the sword formula with his hand, and the thunder sword flew out of the sword box, directly splitting the door panel, and then strode in. Not long after, Zisu, who had been dressed up, was forcibly dragged out of the room by Ling Yunpo. Overall, with the senior sister's appearance and temperament, she doesn't need any makeup at all. She just needs to put her hair up well, choose a hairpin and a dress. Before he traveled through time, Ling Yunpo was a straight man who knew nothing about this. However, Luo Yan had been with Mishi for a long time in Tiangongfang. The lady could wear different clothes every day for a whole year, so he had some experience in dressing up. He combed the senior sister's long hair neatly with a horn comb, tied it into an elegant bun behind her head, and then inserted a jade hairpin. For clothes, he chose a goose yellow long skirt. Although it was a dress, the cuffs were tightened to the shoulders to facilitate the arms to swing and pinch. The skirt was loose, but considering that the senior sister was wearing underwear inside, there was no need to worry about exposure. As for boots, people in this world did not have so many styles for boots, so Ling Yunpo picked a pair of silver silk-woven cloud shoes for senior sister Anne. When he finished dressing her up in front of the bronze mirror, he noticed that the face and neck of senior sister Anne were all red and hot. Ling Yunpo smiled secretly in his heart, pretending to know nothing, and took the senior sister out. After leaving the King Luo Peak Taoist temple, Zisu had calmed down. To be honest, his junior brother was just helping him to dress up, which was not an inappropriate behavior. Although the ancients used the joy of drawing eyebrows to describe the love between husband and wife, his junior brother didn't draw eyebrows. What's wrong with combing hair and choosing clothes? After forcibly convincing himself, Zisu also summoned the Hanlai sword and flew away with Ling Yunpo. The two end north through the Qinglan Mountains and arrived at Tianshui County, and they pressed down the sword light outside the city. The sect behaved differently from the Jie sect, and they always emphasized restraint. If you fly into the city in a swagger, it would be fine to be surrounded by mortals, but being looked down upon by other fellow Taoists and ridiculed behind your back would be a bigger trouble. After asking passers-by nearby, I learned that the Longsig Yuan family was not in the county city of Tianshui County, but near Yuanhan to the east of the county city. The reason why that Yuan family's surname is Yuan is because they have lived in Yuanhan for generations. So Ling Yunpo hired a carriage and took his sister eastward. After about half an hour, they arrived at the gate of Yuan's villa. The villa here covers a large area, with towering walls. In the distance, along the Yuanzhen mountain, there are layers of houses, which can be regarded as truly built on the mountain. There are many servants at the door. When they meet, they first check the invitation respectfully. After confirming the identities of Ling Yunpo and Zisu, they immediately welcome the two in and arrange for the guest room to stay first. The guest room is also extremely luxurious, with 6 rooms and 2 halls, including a bathroom. A spacious hot tub is built with stones, which is many times more comfortable than a bath in a bathtub. Even though Ling Yunpo has completed the marrow washing and no longer produces dirt and dandruff on his body, he also has the idea of washing his healthier like Zhu Yindayan. Zisu was not interested. He walked around in each room and finally returned to the living room, sitting on the armchair and closing his eyes to rest. After Ling Yunpo had adjusted to the bath, he changed his clothes and stood up, going out for a walk with Nzisu, who had been waiting for a long time. The lifespan of a monk is long, and sometimes it may not be appropriate to practice alone. It is also a rare experience to experience the various forms of life in the mortal world. In addition, Ling Yunpo first entered the demon locking tower and then went to the 3-island treasure ship secret realm. The time interval in between was short, and his spirit was already very tired. Just take this opportunity to relax. The two walked side by side, without holding hands, but they seemed to be in tune with each other and their pace was also appropriate. In the courtyard of Yon's villa, there are small bridges, flowing water, clusters of flowers, and all kinds of exquisite scenery. Ling Yunpo is comfortable to watch, and Nzisu was also very leisurely. Just as the two were enjoying it slowly, a voice suddenly sounded in front of them. "Sister Anne, you are here as expected." I knew that it was right to ask junior brother Ling to pass on the invitation. Nzisu's originally leisurely face immediately became cold. Yuan Chenyu, who came out from behind the arch, seemed to be still unaware, and just continued to smile. "Junior brother Lin, are you used to living here? Have you tried a stone bath?" Ling Yunpo did not respond to her words, but said with a straight face, "Thank you for your hospitality." "You're welcome." Yuan Chenyu smiled. "Where is senior sister Anne?" Nzisu stared at her for a long time, and suddenly said, "What's the meaning of inviting me?" "What's the meaning?" Yuan Chenyu blinked and said, "The ancestor wants to invite a new swordsman. As the first person under the Golden Core in Shushan, isn't it normal for senior sister Anne to receive an invitation? Don't you have the final say in the Yuan family on the judgment of new swordsmen under the Golden Core?" Nzisu asked coldly. "Are you questioning my vision, or are you unworthy?" Yuan Chenyu narrowed his eyes. "You know I never accept this kind of invitation. But this time with junior brother Lin, you'll definitely accept it." Nzisu was slightly startled when she heard this, and then a murderous aura was released. "I warn you, don't try to hit my junior brother, senior sister Anne, you are joking." Facing the sharp murderous intent coming towards him, Yuan Chenyu just treated it as a spring breeze and smiled. "It is indeed me who will judge which other foundation building cultivators meet the invitation conditions, but the names of you two are decided by the ancestor himself." Ling Yunpo raised his eyebrows and looked at Nzisu in surprise. "Decided by the ancestor?" Seeing that the senior sister was also confused, Ling Yunpo asked in a deep voice, "Senior sister and I are both ordinary people, how did we catch the attention of your ancestor?" In the Shushan competition, the first and second place can also be considered ordinary people. Yuan Chenyu was still smiling. "My senior sister and I are the first and second in command, and we haven't even achieved the golden elixir yet. How can we be worthy at the immortals' concern?" Ling Yunpo said coldly, "Senior sister Yuan wants to fool around here, but I'm afraid it's not appropriate." "Don't worry, junior brother Lin, I don't intend to fool you." Yuan Chenyu put away his smile and said seriously, "The reason why the ancestor specifically wants to see you is not for anything else, but because you are Su Jian's disciples." Even Nzisu, who was originally alert, couldn't help but be moved at this time. If Yuan Chenyu mentioned any other reasons, no matter how exaggerated it was, she would never believe it. But Yuan Chenyu said it was Su Jian's reason, and she couldn't refute it from the bottom of her heart. Because the master was indeed talented in swordsmanship back then, and was rare in the world. Not only was he highly valued by the long-browed immortal of Shushan, but he was also famous in the outside world. It was normal for the ancestor of the Yuan family to know the master. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Mundo Fanfic Novelers, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelers. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 179. This child and I are destined. I finally understand why my senior sister hates her. Ling Yunpo said with emotion after Yuan Chenyu left. Her. Nzisu was stunned for a moment, then shook her head. Really? I told you, communicating with her is like suffering. The riddle man is really disgusting. Ling Yunpo sighed. No matter how the two tried to probe, Yuan Chenyu was very secretive, and the only thing he asked was wait until the sword tomb is opened and you will know when you meet the ancestor. In this case, why did he tell us in advance? It's fun to keep people in suspense, right? Talking to her makes me feel bad. Nzisu rubbed his eyebrows. Let's go back. Okay, senior sister. The two turned around and went back to the guest room to rest. After a few days, a maid came to inform them that the sword tomb had been officially opened. Ling Yunpo and Nzisu followed the maid who led the way, passed through a tunnel in the mountain, and entered the river valley. The valley here is flat, with no trees or hills, only a large number of long swords scattered in between, sticking in the ground in all directions. This is the sword tomb of the Longsiguan family. Whenever the sword immortal of the Guan family unfortunately dies, the Guan family will seal their flying swords in the sword tomb, called Sword Monument, which is similar to the ancestral tablet. Ling Yunpo and Zisu walked on the small path in the Sword Monument forest, listening to the Guan family maid explaining the history of the sword tomb. It is said that among the sword immortals who fell here, those who died in battle and those who died in heavenly tribulations are basically half and half, and those who died of old age are less than 5%. This is probably because most of the sword immortals of the Guan family are unruly and refuse to die in bed. Once their lifespan is about to end and there is no hope of breaking through the realm, they will go out and fight with the demon cult in order to die gloriously. Zisu was in awe, while Ling Yunpo pretended to be in awe on his face, but sneered in his heart. If my life is coming to an end, I certainly don't want to stay at home and wait for death, but go out to find an opportunity to break through and make a final dying struggle. If I fail and die, you can still say whatever you want. You said that I went to assassinate the demon lord and died for justice, how can I deny it? Of course, everyone will do this kind of thing, which is understandable, so Ling Yunpo said nothing, just looking at the sword monuments around with interest. He suddenly saw a familiar face in the crowd in the distance. Isn't that Guanzhen? How come this third junior brother is here? Oh, his last name is Guan, that's fine. Ling Yunpo retracted his gaze and followed his senior sister through the sword forest, and saw a thatched cottage in front of him. The maid led the two to the cottage and pushed open the door. The two entered the cottage and saw a clean old man sitting on the couch, wearing grey underwear and sitting cross-legged, with his eyes closed. There were gilded incense burners on both sides, and green smoke curled up. Sit, he said lightly. Ling Yunpo and Zisu sat down on the futon, their expressions somewhat apprehensive and solemn. Although the old man seemed ordinary, the intuition of the two sword immortals still made them realize that behind his profound and majestic aura, there was some extremely high level of status. How is Su Jian doing recently? The Guan family ancestor asked with his eyes closed. My master is in good condition. Zisu replied. Has he come out of retreat? No. Since he hasn't come out of retreat, how do you know he is in good condition? The Guan family ancestor opened his eyes and asked jokingly. Zisu frowned slightly, and only heard Ling Yunpo say beside him, the King Luo Peak Taoism has not been cut off, which means my master is in good condition. Hectares. The Guan family ancestor suddenly laughed, and the look he gave Ling Yunpo changed. He said playfully, what a sharp tongue you have. Seeing that the other party was not furious, Ling Yunpo also breathed a sigh of relief. This ancestor probably had no ill will towards King Luo Peak, he just wanted to test the courage of me and my senior sister, and now it seems that he has passed the test. After staring at the two for a while, the Guan family ancestor slowly said, King Luo Peak has fallen into this situation today, it is not your fault, it is indeed Su Jian who has brought it upon himself. I'm sorry that I don't agree with what the ancestor said. Zisu immediately raised her eyebrows and said, and Ling Yunpo was so anxious that he hurriedly grabbed her arm. What does it have to do with me whether you agree or not? The Guan family ancestor sneered and said sarcastically, even if Su Jian stood here, he would have to admit that it was his own responsibility. What qualifications do you have to deny it for him? Zisu was silent, and Ling Yunpo was speechless beside him, wiping his sweat in his heart. If Su Jian was here, of course he would admit that it was his own responsibility, otherwise, could he still push the responsibility to his apprentice? What senior sister said was just a statement, who would have thought that she would be caught by the Guan family ancestor to attack? Immortals can just pretend to be stupid and don't understand, right? Wait, I seem to know where Guan Zhenyu's back character comes from. I told Su Jian in the past that if he doesn't change his stubborn temper, he will destroy himself sooner or later, and even bring disaster to his family. The Guan family ancestor continued to sneer and said, cause and effect, the cycle of heaven, do you think it has come true now? He looked at Zisu and said, if you only know how to imitate your master and fight and make enemies with others, you will end up in the same situation sooner or later. Zisu was silent. Ling Yunpo sat next to him and thought secretly, only to hear that Yuan family ancestor turned around and said to him, you are not like your master and senior sister. You're a smart and resourceful junior. It's rare. Ling Yunpo smiled and thought that this evaluation seemed a little familiar. It was because Su Jian was in seclusion that he asked your senior sister to accept disciples on his behalf, so you were able to become a disciple of King Luo Peak by chance. The ancestor of the Yuan family snorted coldly. If Su Jian were to choose, no matter how talented you are, it would be impossible for you to enter King Luo Peak. Ancestor, you're wrong. Zisu couldn't help but explain. Master appreciates disciples who are geniuses in swordsmanship the most, and junior brother Lin, even if you were a genius, it's useless. The ancestor of the Yuan family said bluntly, since Su Jian inherited King Luo Peak, there have been many talented disciples who have come to become his disciples, but which one of them can he take seriously? Zisu was silent again. Ling Yunpo. The Yuan family ancestor turned his eyes and his expression became gentle. It's not your fault that Su Jian won't accept you. It's because he is naturally picky. No matter how outstanding your swordsmanship talent is, you can't catch his eye. As for your senior sister Anne, the reason why she was able to worship him as a master is because of another relationship, so let's not talk about it. If Su Jian can't come out of retreat, you will be equivalent to a self-reliant cultivator. If Su Jian comes out of retreat, you will probably not be able to get any good treatment from him. At this point, the Yuan family ancestor suddenly paused for a moment, and then said seriously, Su Jian owed me a favor in the past. If you are willing to join my sect and worship me as a master, I will use this favor to exchange with him, so that you will have nothing to say even if he comes out of retreat. How about it? Ling Yunpo was stunned on the spot, but saw Zisu next to him jumped up directly from the futon and screamed in surprise. How can this be? Chapter 180. It turns out to be the Forerunner's fault. Why can't it be so? The Yuan family ancestor said unhappily. The elder stood up and interrupted before he finished speaking. Is Su Jian's family education so arrogant and rude? Zisu bit his lower lip, but refused to give in. He just said stubbornly, even if my master really owes you a favor, you have to talk to him face to face. If the master doesn't want to let me leave, but is unable to take care of this matter because of seclusion, you take the opportunity to force the disciple. How should the younger generation deal with it? If it spreads out, how will people in the world view the Longsig Yuan family? The Yuan family ancestor sneered a few times and said, don't use this to provoke me. You also said that your junior brother Lin is gifted. He is born with sword bones, do you know? Zisu was shocked when he heard this, and Ling Yunpo fell silent. His eyes were filled with tears. Finally, after so many years of worshipping in Shushan, someone finally recognized my Ling Yunpo's peerless talent. Born with sword bones. Zisu thought for a moment and said hesitantly, but what about the born with sword heart? Yes. The Yuan family ancestor said proudly, in fact, the cultivation aptitude of this born sword bone is even stronger than the born sword heart, probably because the state of mind can change, but the bones are extremely difficult to change. With such a peerless talent, even if Su Jian is willing to teach him personally, it is difficult to bring out 80% of his advantages. How can it compare with the personal teaching of an immortal like me? If you really care about your junior brother, you shouldn't hinder his great future. Zisu was pale when he was told that, and she retreated several steps in panic until her back was against the wall. Every word of the Yuan family ancestor was like a heavy hammer, hitting her heart hard. Yes, no matter how much she whitewashed it, for example, the junior brother himself was willing to stay, and for example, she tried to be good to him, it could not change a fact. Ling Yunpo's stay in King Luo Peak did delay his own cultivation. Not to mention, the one who wants to poach him now is one of the few land immortals in the world, the Yuan family ancestor. No matter how reluctant Zisu is, as long as he still has a little kindness towards his junior brother, he can't say anything that will make him refuse the Yuan family ancestor. Seeing that she has surrendered and retreated, the Yuan family ancestor turned his eyes and looked at Ling Yunpo and said, I have heard about your experience in Shushan from you. You worshipped alone at the foot of King Luo Peak, and were implicated by a master Su Jian, and were targeted by Ziyun Peak and other peaks. Fortunately, you finally overcame difficulties with great perseverance and rushed all the way here. You should also know the various difficulties of having no one in your master's sect. If you are willing to switch to my sect, first of all, the resources of the Longsig Yuan family will be completely open to you, and secondly, my Taoism will be passed on to you without reservation. Even those Shushan disciples who have bullied you will avoid you and give you 3 points when they meet in the future. Ling Yunpo lowered his head, and it must be said that he was completely moved. The immortal stroked my head and granted me immortality. As long as he agrees here, Ling Yunpo's identity will immediately leap over the Dragon Gate, even far surpassing Qiu Chain Tian, becoming a super account among many small accounts, and even Qiu Chain Tian can hardly catch up with his edge. You must know that the reason why Qiu Chain Time can become the chief of Kunlun is 3 points due to his Droxin Tongmin talent, but 7 points are due to the wisdom of Ziwei sect master and full support. As for the Yuan family ancestor, the land immortal, it is obvious that he will only be more powerful than Ziwei sect master, not weaker. Under normal circumstances, Ling Yunpo would have nodded like a pestle pounding garlic, kneeled down like his knees took root, and directly paid tribute to the Yuan family ancestor as a disciple. Alas, what a pity, what a pity. Ah Jing. He sighed in his heart, I have sacrificed a lot to help you seize the fragment of the heaven repairing stone from Shushan. TSK. Kunlun Jing snorted disdainfully, if you are willing to hurt senior sister Am, just go ahead. HMPH. Ling Yunpo smiled but said nothing. After a moment of silence, he changed his expression in the order of hesitation, struggle, hesitation, heartache, and resoluteness. He said in a deep voice, Thank you for your kindness, ancestor, but I have already worshipped under the Shushan sect, but it is not easy to change to another sect. I'm ashamed of the ancestor's appreciation. No problem. The ancestor of the Yuan family waved his hand, I'm also a guest elder of the Shanqing sect of Shushan. You switching from King Luo Peak to our sect is not considered to be betraying Shushan. The same is true for King Luo Peak. Ling Yunpo said with a smile, but there was an extremely firm meaning in his smile. He was so firm that the synchronization value of his unyielding personality began to increase. The Yuan family patriarch frowned, stared at him for a long time, and suddenly asked in a deep voice, Are you practicing the questioning love flow? Ling Yunpo. He had already prepared 5 or 6 excuses to deal with the various recruitment conditions offered by this old immortal, but he didn't expect that he would actually ask such a question. Seeing that he was stunned and speechless for a moment, the Yuan family patriarch turned to Nzisu and frowned and asked, Are you also practicing the questioning love flow? Nzisu lowered his head and remained silent. Seeing that both of them were speechless, the Yuan family patriarch understood and immediately felt a little numb. Su Qian, you are really a scum of Shushan. Not only did you switch from the forgetting love flow to the questioning love flow, but you also led 2 outstanding disciples astray. But he was an immortal after all, and he had at least some self-control, so he sighed, patted his knees and said, Wen King Liu, why is it Wen King Liu again? Alas, I told Yu Jing a long time ago that I would let you new disciples talk about the bad deeds of Wen King Liu in the past, but he always insisted that he could not expose his family's shame. May I ask what kind of old story is it? Seeing that the old ancestor had something to say, Ling Yunpo immediately took up the topic and hit the snake with a stick to ease the awkward atmosphere. It's not something difficult to talk about. The old ancestor of the Yuan family sighed and said, Do you know that the ancestor of the human race, Fuxi, cast 2 supreme immortal swords, Qin and Qin? Of course I remember. Ling Yunpo replied. After the monsters were driven to the East Emperor monster realm, the connection between the 2 realms was not as weak as it is now, and big monsters would often pass through the gate to attack. The Yuan family's ancestor was in a rather melancholy mood at this time, and simply told the secrets of the past. Therefore, the human race passed down the 2 supreme immortal swords from generation to generation. In each generation, there were 2 people responsible for wielding the swords to guard the human race and intimidate the monsters. Their names were Master of Qin Sword and Master of Sun Sword respectively. In the last generation, the Master of Sun Sword was called Aoying Zhao and the Master of Qin Sword was called Yin Xiaojing. Both of them were cultivators who followed the path of love and practiced Taoism under the same master for many years. After ascending to immortality, they became Taoist companions and were very loving. Little did they know that Yin Xiaojing's true identity was a kinky sky fox who had smuggled in from the East Emperor monster realm. After she transformed, she used the special magic weapon of the Sky Fox clan to lurk in this realm for many years as a human, all in order to obtain the Qin Suming sword. And Zisu was listening intently, but Ling Yunpo was in a state of confusion. My goodness, it turns out that Yin Xiaojing is actually my senior in the same field. We are both lurking in the sect to obtain valuable treasures, and we are also using some special magic weapons. This sense of Zhu is already full. Unfortunately, according to what the Yuan family ancestor said, Yin Xiaojing seems to have used a beauty trap, but I disdain to do it. Not long after Yin Xiaojing became the master of Qin Sword, his identity was exposed before he could escape back to the Eastern Empire realm. The Yuan family's ancestor said with disdain. The human cultivators wanted to surround and kill him, but the master of Qin Sword, Aoying Zhao, blatantly became an enemy of the entire human race in order to protect his Taoist companion. The two of them killed their way to the gate of the Eastern Empire realm, causing countless casualties among the human race. In the end, Yin Xiaojin returned to the Eastern Empire realm, and Yang Zhao died in battle at the gate. Before his death, he blocked the gate with the sword of Qingjinwei. Since then, the passage between the two realms has been isolated by the eternal burning of the sun's true fire, and humans and demons have different paths, and it is no longer possible to pass, and the whereabouts of the Qin's human sword have been unknown since then. Whereabouts unknown? Ling Yunpo asked curiously. Wasn't it taken back to the demon world by Yin Xiaojin? Before Yang Zhao rebelled, he once proposed that he was willing to hand over his two swords to Yin Xiaojin and find a place in this world where they could live together forever and never set foot in the outside world. So he left the Qin's human sword somewhere in exchange for its location for Yin Xiaojin's chance to survive, the Yuan family's ancestor said with a sneer. But later, probably because the talks with the human race broke down, the two of them ended up with one dying and the other escaping. As for the Qin's human sword, it is unlikely that it was brought back to the Donghuan demon realm, otherwise it would not have been hidden by the demon race for hundreds of thousands of years. I think it is indeed as Yang Zhao said, hidden somewhere in this world and cannot be found in it. Since then, the Asking Love School quickly severed its Taoist lineage and was regarded as a scourge by all major cultivators and sects, and was strictly excluded. You must know that the Asking Love School puts love first, but what if you are full of love but give it to the wrong person? If you insist on asking for love, you will make a big mistake like Yang Zhao. But if you force yourself to forget about love, your foundation will be shaken immediately, and you will be in danger of going astray. At the end, the ancestor of the Yuan family sneered. After all, it is extremely stupid to tie the heart of seeking the Tao to the love of mortals. Seeing that Ling Yunpo was still indifferent, he pointed out and mocked. Take you as an example. For the sake of your senior sister, you are willing to give up even the immortal lineage. Isn't this an act of cutting yourself off from the great way? Over the years, all the cultivators who practiced the King stream were stupid fools like you. Chapter 181. Sword Tomb Conference, Flirting with Senior Sister. After leaving the thatched cottage, the atmosphere between the two became ambiguous. Ling Yunpo was a little upset, and his mind was full of thoughts. The Yuan family ancestor thought that we were practicing the same love flow and had feelings for each other. Why didn't senior sister deny it? Zisu was also a little confused, just pinching the corners of her clothes with both hands, thinking, why didn't I clarify it just now? Was it because I wanted to use this to make the Yuan family ancestor misunderstand so that junior brother Ling would stay? Zisu, you are such a bad woman. Senior sister, let's go back. Ling Yunpo said. Well, let's go back. Zisu said, upset. Have you agreed? The two were about to leave when Yuan Chenu came over from the opposite side and asked, did junior brother Pun agree? First of all, it was Ling Yunpo. Ling Yunpo hadn't finished correcting himself when Zisu asked coldly, did you instigate it? Don't be ridiculous. Yuan Chenu didn't take it seriously. I don't have the energy to guide the ancestor. Besides, isn't it natural for someone with the talent of a natural sword bone to be favored by others? It would be best if it wasn't you behind the scenes. Zisu said in a deep voice. Don't worry. Yuan Chenu waved his hand, but don't leave yet, the ancestor will formally summon you later. The implication was that the Yuan family ancestor had just met privately with the two. As for the formal summons later, there was another business to do. Ling Yunpo and Zisu exchanged glances and followed Yuan Chenu to a nearby yard. In the open space surrounded by many sword monuments, there were scattered tables and chairs, and many sword immortals were already sitting there. The Yuan family had the largest number of disciples, followed by the Shushan monks. There were also people from Kunlun and Penglai participating. In addition to Qiu Chang's third junior brother Guanzhen, Ling Yunpo also saw Yan's senior brother Limushu. At this time he was discussing sword forging with a Yuan family monk, as if they had known each other for a long time. Ling Yunpo and Zisu sat in a corner, unable to fit in with the conversation of these strangers, so they whispered to each other. Junior brother, are you really not going to consider it? Zisu asked in a low voice. Is my senior sister going to drive me away? Ling Yunpo asked back with a smile. No, it's just, Zisu hesitated, and after a long while, he said, after all, he is an immortal. What about an immortal? Ling Yunpo was impassioned. Without an immortal, I can't become an immortal. I would rather give up the great way that my senior sister got. Unyielding character, synchronization value +1. Junior brother. Zisu looked at him with some tenderness in her eyes, but more of it was helplessness and reluctance. I'm really happy that you are willing to stay in King Luo Peak, but I am still afraid that it will delay your path. Compared to the path, what I care more about is that I must not let you down. Ling Yunpo said immediately. So Anzisu became shy again. She lowered her head, revealing her fair neck, and her long eyelashes trembled, as if she was hiding some emotions. Ling Yunpo suddenly found that his senior sister, who was always gentle but strong and heroic, was quite cute when she was shy occasionally. He could continue to tease her. Senior sister. Ling Yunpo deliberately prolonged his voice. Zisu didn't look at him, but just lowered her head and stared at her toes. The ancestor of the Yuan family said that you're practicing the asking love flow. Is that true? Zisu didn't answer, but just nodded slightly. She didn't know what she was thinking, and felt that the thoughts in her mind had become a mess. At first, she thought, how could junior brother say something that could lead to misunderstanding? Then she thought, maybe junior brother is really expressing his feelings in a tactful way. Then she thought again, what if junior brother is just saying that he can't let me down? Then she thought again, but what if junior brother actually means? Her mind seemed to be in a mess, until Ling Yunpo asked her, are you planning to practice the questioning love flow? She suddenly broke free from those embarrassing illusions and said hurriedly, junior brother, whether it is the questioning love flow or any other school, you have to wait until you have formed the elixir before considering it. It's too early to ask this now. Too early. Oh. Ling Yunpo pretended to be puzzled, but why did the Yuan family patriarch ask as if we have all practiced the questioning love flow? The Yuan family patriarch actually wanted to ask us if we have. Zisu spoke quickly and hurriedly, but she suddenly got stuck when she said this. Anything? Ling Yunpo teased her again. That's it. Zisu's face flushed, and after a while, he suddenly said as if he had found a savior, hey, the Yuan family's ancestor has come out. Ling Yunpo looked back and saw that the Yuan family's ancestor had already pushed the door and walked out of the thatched cottage. The young sword immortal disciples around him stood up one after another and saluted to greet the old immortal. The Yuan family's ancestor stretched out his hand and gestured for everyone to sit down again. Then he stretched out his hand and Yuan Jinyu next to him came over with a sword. The sword is the king of all weapons. The Yuan family ancestor took the long sword and said slowly, everyone, why do practitioners use flying swords more often, but rarely use flying knives, flying spears and other weapons? His eyes swept across the crowd, and then fell on Ling Yunpo, motioning him to say, you tell me. Ahem. Ling Yunpo said awkwardly, is it because the flying sword is good at stabbing and can also seal the Taoism on it? It makes sense. The Yuan family ancestor nodded and said, anyone who is good at stabbing must be straight. Those who are good at the law must be heavy. The flying sword is straighter than the knife, and heavier than the spear, so it can stand out. The sword is like this, not seeking to be the only one to win, but to be impeccable. The sword immortal showed a look of enlightenment. Next, it was the Yuan family ancestors' time to preach. In ordinary sword schools, the master's teaching to the disciples is often limited to the scope of technique, such as how to stab with this sword, how to block the enemy's attack, etc. But the Yuan family patriarch was worthy at being a land immortal. He had only said a few words, and the sword immortal disciples immediately realized that these words had risen to the realm of Tao that was out of reach but extremely yearning for. Therefore, they all put in 120,000 efforts, listened carefully, and silently memorized. When it came to the wonderful parts, some people even couldn't help but burst into tears, and praised and admired. Only Ling Yunpo was extremely calm, because he could not only let Kunlun Mirror record it on the spot, but also let King Ping Sword explain it to him word by word later, so he was not in a hurry to understand it on the spot. The Yuan family patriarch noticed his calm demeanor and couldn't help but admire him more. It is good to be thirsty for Tao, but it is a better quality to be not surprised when hearing Tao. After the lecture, many people were still in a state of intoxication, as if they had not yet awakened from the epiphany. The next moment, the Yuan family's ancestor announced a heavy news that suddenly woke them up. I have communicated with the Shushanshan King sect and reached an agreement. Next, I will leave the sword tomb and go looking for the ancient lost human sword. Chapter 182 Pre-registration for the sword hunt. The Yuan family patriarch announced that he was going to search for the lost human sword. Of course, he didn't say it to the young sword immortal disciples present. Instead, he wanted to use their mouths to convey the news to the Kunlun, Shushan, Penglai, and other major cultivation sects behind them. Anyone who could provide effective clues would receive a reward from the Longsig Yuan family and a favor from the Yuan family patriarch. A favor from a land immortal. This advertisement was a sensation and spread across the country in an instant. After the Sword Tomb Taoist conference ended, Ling Yunpo and Anzisio retained to chat with the immortal. Although you don't want to be my disciple, you can still participate in my subsequent search for the sword. Yun's ancestor said to Ling Yunpo, I have roughly confirmed the escape routes of the two last sword masters in ancient times, and I will search for them according to the routes later. You don't need to do anything at ordinary times. When I need you, I will let you contact you in advance. How about it? The elders have entrusted me, and I dare not disobey. Ling Yunpo carefully calculated for a moment, thinking that if I just use my ability of resonating with the sword, it is not impossible. Anyway, the reward given by the immortal will not disappoint people. Very good. Yun's ancestor said with satisfaction, then it's settled. After Ling Yunpo and Zisu left, Yun's ancestor flew up on his sword and suddenly arrived at the Shushan Locking Demon Tower. At the bottom of the Locking Demon Tower, he saw the long-browed immortal guarding this place. Long-browed. Yuan family patriarch said bluntly, I'll protect Ling Yunpo. Hearing this, long-browed immortal opened one eye and said coldly, isn't he unwilling to join your sect? But he will join me in the subsequent sword hunting. Yuan family patriarch laughed. In history, there have been more than 30 sword hunting operations of Nanjiri sects, large and small. Long-browed immortal said coldly, even those who mobilized more troops and invested more resources than you did, there were 7 or 8 times, but they all returned empty-handed, let alone you. Do they have practitioners who were born with sword bones? Yuan family patriarch disagreed. Although the sword bone can resonate with the sword, it cannot ignore the spatial distance. The immortal with long eyebrows remained indifferent. If the distance is enough to cause resonance, how can it be hidden from the immortal's consciousness? It may also be the shielding of that formation. In short, it is impossible if we don't try. The ancestor of the Yuan family sighed and said, Changmea, don't lie to me. What do you think is the possibility of Wang Xiang's divination result coming true? I don't know. The immortal with long eyebrows said indifferently, you can ask him yourself. If the demons want to invade the human world in the future, then retrieving the Sunday and Moon swords will be our most critical step. The ancestor of the Yuan family said with his hair and beard puffed up, the Sun True Darkness sword is at the gate of the East Empire realm. To get the sword, you need to pass through the burning area of the Sun True Fire. We just need to wait for Wang Xiang's absolute fire true spirit pearl to be trained. I don't know where the Qin's human sword is. I will search along the escape routes of the two last sword masters. Among them, Ling Yunpo's natural sword bone may be the key to success or failure, so don't hinder me this time. Boring. The long-browed immortal closed his eyes again. Has your disciple, the Seven Killings Master, come out of retreat? The Yuan family ancestor changed the subject. Not yet. The long-browed immortal said in a low voice, if he is lucky enough to survive, it won't be long. If he comes out of retreat and finds out the treatment his 2 disciples have suffered for so many years, he will definitely go crazy. The Yuan family ancestor sneered, even if Zhufeng has long been enemies with the King Luo lineage, who would dare to really embarrass them without the tacit approval of you, the immortal? Aren't you afraid that Su Jian will completely sever the master-disciple relationship with you after he comes out of retreat? The long-browed immortal was silent for a moment and said, if he still insists on not changing his ways, I will treat him as if I don't have a disciple like him. Good, good, good. The Yuan family ancestor gave a thumbs up, great. You have courage. The Demon Locking Tower is an important place in Shushan. It is inconvenient for idle people to stay for a long time. Send him away. The long-browed immortal was angry and swung his sleeves vigorously. So the Yuan family ancestor laughed loudly and turned away. For a while, the entire space at the bottom of the tower was filled with his playful and wild laughter. After a long time, the sound fell silent. On the Bagua purple gold platform in the center of the hall, the long-browed immortal was silent for a long while before he took out a stone from his sleeve. The stone looked ordinary, but if someone used their spiritual sense to perceive it carefully, they would find that it was still ordinary. How could the stone that the immortal brought with him be an ordinary stone? Great calamity, the long-browed immortal murmured in a low voice, great calamity, if the prediction of the Wang Xiang immortal came true, the calamity of extinction in the future would be unavoidable. Then, the key to protecting the entire Shushan Shanking sect would be the stone in his hand. At the time, the Shushan sect master who could take over the important task of protecting the sect would be no one else except the 7 Killings true man Su Jian. However, to take this position, one must abandon the 7 emotions and 6 desires of mortals. Otherwise, with the past of Yang Zhao and Yin Xiaoji in front of him, how could a sect master who was a sentimental person convince the public? The long-browed immortal slowly rubbed the surface of the stone and slowly closed his eyes again. No matter whether the future catastrophe is the invasion of demons, the advent of demons, the appearance of ghosts, or some other natural disaster, at least the Shushan King sect cannot be destroyed in his hands. Ling Yunpo and Zisu returned to King Luo Peak and came to the backyard of the Taoist temple. The Yuan family's ancestors' sword theory is indeed exquisite. Even a swordsman like Senior Sister Anne, who has strong sword skills, has gained a lot of inspiration and insights from it. Therefore, as soon as she returned to the backyard, she stretched out her hand from behind to summon the cold sword and began to practice according to her new insights. Ling Yunpo sat in the pavilion by the stream, leisurely watching Senior Sister Anne flying the sword, as if a beauty was dancing and a fish and dragon were turning. Although Senior Sister was very depressed for a while because her natal sword was destroyed, she finally cheered up after seeing so many handsome swordsmen today and getting the guidance of the immortals on land. After I find the Feon sword for her, I believe Senior Sister will be able to recover to her prime. At this moment, the sun sets and the moon rises. The night falls, the cicadas begin to sing, and the sound of water continues. Zisu suddenly stops the sword light, turns around, and says with a smile, "Junior brother, why are you still sitting there? Don't you want to practice with me for a while? Since Senior Sister invites you, Junior brother will naturally obey." Ling Yunpo immediately jumped off the stone bench, pinched the seal with his right hand to pull out King Ping, and used the sword with his left hand to summon Lei Li. Both fairy swords were pointed at Zisu. "Why, do you want to outnumber the weak?" Zisu said with a smile, obviously in a very happy mood. "Senior Sister's skills are more profound than mine, you should let me have a sword," Ling Yunpo said shamelessly. Under the moonlight, the three fairy swords suddenly intertwined, and a few points of brilliance were wiped out in the sound of metal colliding, like the cry of a phoenix and a dragon. The next chapter goes to Kunlin. Chapter 183. It's too easy to fool Junior Sister Ziu. Point 1. Kunlin Tai King Sect, Jinline. Character Identity. Kyo Chains Iron. Mirror Flower Water Moon Template Overwritten, currently traveling through time and space. Kyo Chains Iron sat on the stone bed, ready to start today's lecture. As the direct disciple of Ziwi's sect master and the chief senior brother of this generation, Kyo Chains Iron had to replace his master every morning to lecture and answer questions for his junior brothers and sisters. Soon, everyone arrived at his cave one after another. Third junior brother Guanzhen was cold and gloomy, and found a seat in the corner without saying a word. Fourth junior brother Yamzachua was gentle and elegant, striding in with a scroll in his arms, and even performed a disciple salute with Kyo Chains Iron. Kyo Chains Iron nodded in response. Fifth junior brother Chenxin and sixth junior brothers Thong Tianhua, who had always been inseparable, were playing and laughing with each other when they entered the cave. When they saw Kyo Chains Iron sitting on the stone bed, they immediately shut up. The last to come in were junior sister Jian Qingnan and second junior sisters Yu Yingyan. Jian Qingnan's expression seemed a little stiff, as if he wanted to say something but didn't dare to, whilst Yu Yingyan's face was full of frost, and his eyes were like sharp blades. He came in and stabbed Kyo Chains Iron. Kyo Chains Iron. He was a little puzzled at first, but after all, he was a smart person who played 4 characters, so he immediately reacted. The reason why he was able to skip the marrow washing and enter the what was because he went to the trial of the demon locking tower. This matter had been known by junior sister Ziu. Thinking about it carefully, it was normal. According to the instructions of the Ziwi sect master, he should actually enter the demon locking tower in a low-key manner, soak in the blood pool in a low-key manner, and finally leave in a low-key manner. However, when he first played Ling Yunpo, he saw his future self, Kyo Chains Iron, coming with a sword and a flute, and his appearance was as high profile as it could be. Then he encountered the invasion of the big monster and the riot of the Dragon Clan. In order to maintain the consistency of time and history, when he played Kyo Chains Iron later, he could only follow the strategy of Kunlun Mirror and go through the process one by one. Finally, almost the entire Shushan Mountain knew that Kunlun Chief Kyo Chains Iron had seen through the conspiracy of the big monster in advance and protected the trial team of the demon locking tower. Until now, this news has only been passed back to Kunlun, which surprised him a little. Kyo Chains Iron calmed his mind and showed a chic smile to Zhu Yingyan. Zhu Yingyan remained silent, just staring at his senior brother. Staring, soon, the atmosphere in the entire cave became awkward. Guanzhen closed his eyes, too lazy to get involved in these trivial matters. Yanzichua seemed to be hesitant to speak, with a helpless expression. Chenxin and Thong Tianhua closed their mouths and exchanged glances frantically, as if typing Morse code with the frequency of blinking. Only the little junior sister Jin Kingdom kept winking at Kyo Chain Tian, hinting that something was wrong and he should do something quickly. How has junior sisters you been recently? Seeing that Zhu Yingyan had no intention of sitting down on the futon, Kyo Chain Tian could only take the lead in opening the topic and said with a smile. Not good. Zhu Yingyan said coldly, too sad. Why are you sad? Someone once said he would walk side by side with me, but in the blink of an eye he secretly took a shortcut and took a shortcut. That's why I'm sad. Zhu Yingyan's eyes were like a knife, sweeping across his face. Kyo Chain Tian. I can't say it, so I'll just laugh awkwardly for a while. If someone else said this, Kyo Chain Tian would definitely look at her like a fool. Who stipulated that I must share my adventures with you? However, junior sisters Yu is not like other people. At the beginning, in order to brush the synchronization value of the invincible character setting, I almost made her have a demon in her heart. Later, because of the matter of the Taoist partner, I had to take on the task of helping her dispel obsession, so I said a lot of sweet words to her, such as on the road to cultivation, it's no regret to have junior sister's company, and you are my junior sister recognized by Kyo Chain Tian, and I want to make a bet with junior sister. By the way, I made a bet with junior sisters you before. She even almost swore a poisonous oath to complete the marrow cleansing within 2 years and catch up with herself. But she found out that the target she was chasing had cheated. You can imagine how she felt at this moment. Kyo Chain Tian felt guilty and blamed himself, and his mind was racing. He was speechless for a while. Zhu Yingyan was full of resentment, and there was a trace of resentment and misery that she herself had not yet noticed. Naturally, she was speechless. The two stared at each other in silence. The other junior brothers and sisters naturally did not dare to speak at all, but just communicated with each other with their eyes. Senior sisters you looks like a poor woman who has been abandoned. Chen Xin said with his eyes. Senior brother, you're a heartless and unfaithful man. Jin Kingnan responded with his eyes, shame on you. Senior brother Qiu, I respect you so much. Alas, asking what love is in the world only makes people's hearts break and their hearts shatter without a trace. Thong Tianhua sighed. Don't guess blindly, this is not what a gentleman does. Yan Zichua frowned and kept signaling them with his eyes not to wink. Yuan Xin in the corner snorted coldly and turned his head away. Would you like to take a seat, junior sisters you? Kyo Chain Tian asked in a clear voice, even if you were mentally injured, there should be medicine to cure it. What is the medicine? Zhu Yingyan was silent for a long time before sitting down on the futon and asked. Let's wait until senior brother finishes preaching the sutra. Kyo Chain Tian smiled calmly. So everyone hurriedly sat down in an orderly manner. No matter how much they quarreled, they still had to listen to the sutra. After all, it was related to the Great Way. In his mind, King Ping Sword suddenly asked curiously, I also want to know what the medicine is. It's not like you can kneel down and apologize to junior sisters you after the crowd disperses, right? Or hold her in your arms and kiss her hard to fool her. Don't be silly. Kumlan Mira sneered, he must not have thought of what to do, so he deliberately used this to delay time. Shut up, you two. Kyo Chain Tian scolded unhappily. After the sutra was finished, the junior brothers and sisters were as if they had been pardoned, and they all fled at once. Only Kyo Chain Tian and Zhu Yingyan were left staring at each other, the former forcing a smile while the latter sneered. Junior sister, Kyo Chain Tian suddenly had an idea and asked, does the bed still count? Zhu Yingyan continued to stare at him. Alas, Kyo Chain Tian pretended to sigh, if junior sister wants to cancel the bet for this reason, so be it, let's just pretend that we never made an agreement. He pretended to get up and leave, but Zhu Yingyan stopped him. Brother, what do you mean? Do you think I'm acting like this to get away with the previous bet? Junior sister, you misunderstood me. Kyo Chain Tian hurriedly explained, but Zhu Yingyan didn't believe it at all. He just gritted his teeth in anger and said fiercely, Brother Qiu, I'm not as good at calculating as you. Even if there is no blood pool in the demon locking tower to help, the 2-year marrow cleansing is still 2 years. Don't look down on me like that. She left angrily, leaving Kyo Chain Tian with a dull expression. After a long while, he sighed softly. I should copy a copy of the bodybuilding secret technique I got from the Sanu secret realm and send it to junior sister Zhu. Chapter 184. Start harvesting leeks. The secret art of body forging is different from the art of ki refining. The first reason is its rarity, that is, most cultivators are not familiar with it. Even if they see someone washing their marrow very quickly, they will not immediately associate it with the secret art of body forging. The second reason is its timeliness. Before the golden elixir is formed, especially when practicing at the marrow washing stage, the effect is best. After the golden elixir is formed, the speed of the body forging secret art cannot keep up, and it will inevitably be abandoned by the cultivators. Therefore, as long as Zhu Ying or Yan does not shout outside "I practiced the secret art of body forging," generally there will be no risk of complications. Considering that the secret art of body forging is a secret of the ancient witch clan, once its source is exposed, it will inevitably attract covetousness. Who doesn't know a few younger disciples who want to wash their marrow? The junior sister must still be vigilant. Qiu Changtai finished copying the secret art of body forging, then took the jade slip and went to Zhu Yingyan's cave. In the cave, Zhu Yingyan looked at herself in the bronze mirror and slowly lay down in front of the stone table. She began to regret it. The so-called 7-aperture exquisite heart should be able to see through everything easily and remain calm. Why can't I help but quarrel with my senior brother when I am with him? She buried her head in the crook of her arms and sighed deeply. Even if we are Taoist companions, there is no reason to share adventures. Besides, it was the master who chose my senior brother to go to the trial of the demon-locking tower. If I really want to blame someone, I should blame the master for being partial. It's not my senior brother's fault, but I showed my displeasure to him in his cave, making my junior brothers and sisters laugh at me. It was really embarrassing. Zhu Yingyan closed her eyes and uttered a low whimper of regret. Suddenly, she heard Qiu Changtai calling from outside. "Junior sisters, are you in the cave?" "Yes." Zhu Yingyan raised her head and responded. Qiu Changtai entered the cave and saw only junior sisters Yu's retreat residence, which was not much different from his own cave. The living environment of both of them was simple. The only difference was that Zhu Yingyan's stone bed had a large cushion, probably for comfort when meditating. Seeing Zhu Yingyan sitting in front of the stone table, Qiu Changtai placed a jade slip in front of her table. "Here, take it." "What is this?" Zhu Yingyan cast her eyes on the jade slip. "The secret art of bodybuilding." Qiu Changtai replied. "The secret book of martial arts of the Jianghu people." Zhu Yingyan said with a smile, obviously treating this secret art of bodybuilding as something like golden bell cover and iron cloth shirt. "Why are you giving me this?" "No, you read it first." Qiu Changtai said. Zhu Yingyan picked up the jade slip and immersed her consciousness in it, and then she realized that this martial arts method was called Longqie Beiying Song. As she continued to read, she frowned coldly and said, "How could it be a legacy of the ancient witch clan? Where did you get it from, brother?" "Hush." Qiu Changtai signaled her not to ask any more questions. Although this thing is rare and precious, its application is very limited. It is more cost-effective to practice it below the foundation building stage, especially for marrow washing. "Yes." Zhu Yingyan read on and immediately saw that the root of this technique in the body was much more sophisticated than the key refining technique, and it was perfect for marrow washing and meridian cutting. "Thank you, brother." She thanked him very sincerely. "Don't thank me." Qiu Changtai blinked. "This is not just a support between brothers and sisters, you know." Zhu Yingyan pursed her lips and blushed slightly. She suddenly thought. Although she rarely mentioned it, she probably still regarded her brother as her future Taoist partner in her heart, otherwise why would she get angry because her brother got the benefits but didn't share them with her? Thinking about it carefully, it seems that there is some motive of being petty in it, which is really too embarrassing. Thinking of this, Zhu Yingyan finally couldn't bear it anymore, and said angrily, I know. You can go." "Ah?" Qiu Changtai was immediately confused. "I gave you a secret technique, why do you want to drive me away? You're repaying kindness with hatred. Go." Zhu Yingyan stood up without saying anything, pushed his back and drove him out, yelling, "I want to practice." After blasting her senior brother out of the cave, Zhu Yingyan returned to the cave room and looked at the jade slip in her hand with a complicated expression. In the past, with her competitive spirit and self-esteem, she would never accept this kind of gift from her senior brother that was almost like charity. But now, just think of it as an advance from the betrothal gift. The important thing is to seize this opportunity and catch up with her senior brother's progress as soon as possible. Zhu Yingyan clenched his fists and his fighting spirit was high. Qiu Changtai left the cave, still a little confused about the sudden change in his junior sister's attitude. Never mind, maybe she just wasn't feeling well today. Ignoring the common sense that practitioners don't get sick, Qiu Changtai happily came to the conclusion. for the sake of contributing a huge amount of synchronization value to me, I'll forgive you this time." Seeing that it was still early, Qiu Changtian flew eastward with his sword. When he arrived at the Xuanpu district in the middle section of the Kunlun Mountains, he saw the sky full of light, which was much more lively than the western section of the city where he lived. The Xuanpu district is not only the cultivation residence of the inner disciples, not the direct disciples, but also a concentrated area for planting spiritual medicines and feeding spiritual beasts, which is equivalent to the internal production area of the entire Kunlun Taiking sect. Compared with the outer disciples who work hard all day to earn resources by going on missions, and the direct disciples who stay in the cave and practice wholeheartedly, the inner disciples are relatively more leisurely, and most of them are keen on socializing. Many gossips within the sect are spread through the inner disciples, and some are even produced by the inner disciples themselves. In short, these people are a bit like low-level civil servants who have an iron rice bowl and do not seek promotion and punch the clock in of ease. They are also the leagues that Qiu Changtian has focused on cultivating recently. I'm wrong, it should be called the group of younger generations that are focused on supporting. After all, when they can't go out to train and take tasks, the synchronization value of outer disciples is not so easy to brush. Therefore, Qiu Changtian plans to start with these inner disciples. To be precise, it is to open up new synchronization value channels. And what we want to try this time is to follow the example of the Yuan family's ancestor, discuss the Tao publicly, and convince everyone. Considering that if the disciples of this generation do not have a strange encounter, they basically remain at the realm of Qi refining, Qiu Changtian is quite confident about this plan. Soon, through several familiar inner disciples, the news that Qiu Changtian, the chief senior brother of this generation, is going to hold a discussion meeting, immediately spread among the 280th generation of inner disciples. About an hour later, Qiu Changtian arrived above the venue on his sword, but found that not only the disciples of this generation, but also many senior brothers and sisters from previous generations came here to admire his reputation. Among these senior brothers and sisters, the majority were at the marrow cleansing stage, and there were also quite a few at the palace transformation stage, which shocked and surprised Qiu Changtian. Fortunately, no Jindan Senrum attended the meeting. Of course, it was too outrageous for a Jindan Senrum to attend a discussion meeting hosted by a foundation establishment stage disciple, even if the other party was the chief disciple. The venue is set up at the top of Kun Peak, where there was a large natural depression on the top of the mountain, which could accommodate many disciples to watch. I saw sword lights constantly falling down, and all the visitors were dressed as inner disciples. After landing, they looked around for a while, and then found acquaintances in the venue, sat over to chat and chat. Soon, most of the venue was filled. Qiu Changtian looked at this grand scene in the air, and couldn't help but secretly smack his lips. I didn't expect that the name Qiu Changtian would be so widely spread among the inner disciples. I just asked a few familiar disciples to help me invite them, and in the end, so many people came to the meeting. Thinking of this, he subconsciously felt a little uneasy, but then he thought of so many fellow disciples. If they could all be trained to be like junior sisters they could contribute synchronization points to him. Fight. Grit your teeth and go for it. Chapter 185. Immortals discuss the video, give your advice. He sat in the corner of the audience, his expression calm. Ever since he was directly penetrated by Qiu Changtian in the secret realm of the Queen Mother of the West last time, he had to lie dormant for a long time. In fact, he often asked himself when no one was around, can I really beat this Qiu Changtian? A disciple of the marrow cleansing stage can kill 2 disciples of the palace transformation stage, and a disciple of the palace transformation stage can actually penetrate the secret realm of the golden core realm. What can I do now? Could it be that I should find a cultivator of the nascent soul realm to kill him? If I can find a cultivator of the nascent soul realm to help me, why would I compete with Qiu Changtian for the position of the chief of the foundation establishment realm? In fact, He did not completely give up the fight for the position. For example, the demon cult's wanted order a few days ago was actually the information he collected about Qiu Changtian, which was handed over to Wen Yang, the foundation establishment judge of the Ingido. The Ingido adheres to the elite disciple system. Ordinary disciples are called ghost messengers, while elite disciples are called judges. Its selection system is much more cruel than that of the orthodox religion. Ghost messengers and judges can be promoted or demoted. Wen Yang is the most ruthless in the foundation building realm, and is also that judge most favored by the elders. After He handed over the information to him, the demon sect immediately issued a wanted order, and it was the highest level, which might even attract the action of union cultivators. However, it was useless, because Qiu Changtime had heard the news and planned to stay in Kunlin. No. He must go out. Song He carefully studied Qiu Changtime's past life since he entered the sect, and finally found a suspected breakthrough. This Qiu Changtime seems to like to show off very much. Since he entered the sect, when he was still in the key refining stage, he took the initiative to go out to do training tasks. Even for the simplest tasks, there must be outer disciples accompanying him, and he never acts alone. In other words, there is a high probability that this Qiu Changtime is enjoying the attention and admiration of others. Since he likes reputation so much, Song He will help him to improve his reputation until he is praised to the point of forgetting everything and becoming arrogant and revealing his flaws. Let him be proud for a while. Song He stared at Qiu Changtime, who landed in the center of the venue, and narrowed his eyes slightly. Qiu Changtime came to the center of the venue, bowed to the disciples around him, and said with a smile, "I originally planned to invite 3 or 5 friends to chat casually, but I didn't expect so many people to come." A friendly laugh rang out around him, and some disciples also said, "Although senior brother Qiu didn't invite us, we can come and listen." So the laughter became louder. Of course, in addition to the disciples who really planned to come and listen, there were also many people who came because of his reputation, because Song He kept arranging and building momentum behind the scenes. Many senior brothers and sisters at the waffle level had more or less heard of the name Qiu Changtime. For these people, some came simply to see how good he was, and some held an attitude of disbelief and doubt, intending to embarrass him later. Although there is no hatred, the so-called tall tree attracts the wind is the truth. In that case, what do you want to hear? Qiu Changtime laughed heartily. The true words of the 9 heavens Pure Land entry. A disciple shouted. Qiu Changtime was sweating in his heart. Can I just pass on this thing? Even if I dare to say it, do you dare to listen? Aren't you afraid of going crazy after listening to the first part without the second part? Fortunately, everyone seemed to think that this was unreliable, and they put forward more opinions. Don't be anxious. Qiu Changtime hurriedly signaled everyone to stop, thinking that this was the result he wanted. If he talked about a certain topic right away, the audience who were not interested in it would protest and make a fuss. On the contrary, if he symbolically asked everyone what do you want to hear, they would definitely say everything at this time. Then he only needs to choose the ones he wants to talk about, and he can also call it listening to the opinions of the audience, which is really a very clear calculation. Next, Qiu Changtime told everyone about the knowledge of breathing and refining ki, saying that most of the fellow disciples want to listen to breathing and refining ki. Of course, it was impossible for him to talk about the true words of the 9 heavens Pure Land, but he was proficient in several ki refining techniques, such as the Tiasan Hunyuan's Hula about the tenacity of the true essence, and the Xiaomo Shangling Fen Bia King Zhu about the transformation of the clear and turbid. The more he came into contact with it, the more he understood. He just randomly picked out the mysteries and briefly explained them, which immediately aroused the interest of the Kunlun disciples around him and made them listen attentively. When he finished speaking, most of the Kunlun disciples still maintained a thoughtful attitude, as if they had gained something. However, several senior brothers who had originally intended to make things difficult for him had already found a few unclear points in his speech and immediately shouted, "Junior brother Qiu, I don't understand 3 points in what you just said, please help me solve my doubts." Qiu Changtime was not in a hurry and answered the questions he raised one by one, which immediately made the eyes of those disciples who were listening bright. The senior brother who asked the question earlier was originally thought to be just knowledgeable and well-informed, but he did not expect that his research on these contents was also quite profound. For a moment, he could not think of how to respond, and could only nod stiffly to show that he would learn. On Qiu Changtime's side, his sea of consciousness was already flooded with reminders of the increase in synchronization value. Feeling proud, he looked around the audience again and said, "Is there anything else you're interested in? Whether it is breathing and refining ki, sword control, or strange and side paths, there are no taboos, you can talk about it." The tone of this remark was really a bit loud, so that someone immediately stood up and said, "Junior brother Qiu, regarding the many schools of Kunlun sword control, please feel free to comment on it." In the cave, Zhu Yingyan tried to circulate the great circulation according to the bodybuilding secret technique in the jade slip. This bodybuilding secret technique felt quite difficult when it was first encountered, and the ki circulation route was extremely complex and delicate. But after completing a round of great circulation, combined with the effect of the pure yuan ki pill, most of the residual turbid air in the marrow cavity that could not be conquered was eliminated, which surprised Zhu Yingyan. The only drawback is that the route is too complicated, and it is too slow to complete a round of great circulation. No wonder senior brother Kyo said that this bodybuilding secret technique is only suitable for practice in the foundation building stage, and the efficiency of improving cultivation after the formation of the pill is too slow. It turns out that the crux is here. However, for her strong personality, as long as this technique is really helpful for marrow cleansing, she will naturally be willing to invest time and energy in it. After all, Zhu Yingyan is a cunning cultivator with a very mature psychological age. Just as she was about to start the second round of great circulation, Jian Qingnan rushed in from outside. "It's not good, second senior sister. The eldest brother and other fellow disciples are arguing." Zhu Yingyan. "What?" she said in a lost voice, and quickly stood up, arguing. "It's at the top of Kun Peak." Jian Qingnan said in a panic, "It's very fierce, and it is said that many elders have rushed over. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Mundo Fanfic Novelers, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelers. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 186 Everything is beyond calculation. Zhu Yingyan and Jian Qingnan flew up on their swords and rushed to the sky above Kun Peak. The so-called Kun Peak is a mountain range in the Chuanpo district in the middle section of the Kunlun Mountains. It is named because there is a depression on the top of the mountain, and the snow is like clouds but does not move. As Zhu Yingyan descended through the clouds, he heard the voices of people below, as if they were about to break through the sky. "Junior brother Kyu." Someone vaguely tried to shout to suppress the sound. "I have a question about the Taoist method of sealing on the sword. Have you heard?" The voice behind was suppressed by the sound of the wind. Zhu Yingyan hurriedly accelerated his descent, only to hear Kyo Chang's voice again. "This is not difficult, everyone listen to me." Zhu Yingyan suddenly had the urge to vomit blood. When he had made things difficult for him before, he would raise his chin contemptuously and say, "What's the difficulty?" Now in front of everyone, he changed his tone to "This is not difficult." So it was directed at me. Following Jian Qingnan down to the top of Kun Peak, the two found that the top of the peak was almost packed with people. Nearly 1,000 monks gathered together to listen to Kyo Chang's and everyone debating. "And so I can't explain everything to others. How about it?" Kyo Chang's finished speaking in one breath, smiling and looking at the person who asked the question. The questioner was speechless and covered his face with his sleeves to show his submission. A loud wave of voices immediately erupted around. "Good. Brother Kyo was amazing. Morning bells and evening drums, subtle words and profound meanings. Wonderful." Zhu Yingyan looked at it for a long time, turned around and asked Jian Qingnan, "Isn't this just an ordinary discussion of the Tao?" "How can it be an ordinary discussion of the Tao, Sister Yingyan?" Jian Qingnan stood on tiptoe, pointed to several positions in front and said, "Look at that, and that brother." A bunch of people surrounded Brother Kyo, taking turns to ask all kinds of difficult questions. "Isn't this a round-robin battle?" "Then what was the result?" Zhu Yingyan asked helplessly. "The result, of course he can't win." Jian Qingnan said, "As a matter of course, senior brother Kyo was so powerful, who can defeat him? That is to say, he is showing off again." Zhu Yingyan looked at the venue below with a complicated expression. As Jian Qingnan said, basically the audience took turns to ask questions, and Kyo Chang's answered them one by one. Among the questioners, some were sincere and asked very basic questions. Some deliberately asked those difficult and out-of-scope questions. However, no matter what type of question, Kyo Chang's would ponder for a moment and answer fluently, as if no question could exceed the boundaries of his knowledge. The eyes of the crowd were also extremely sharp. If the questioner was sincere in asking, they would respond with pure applause. If the question was malicious, they would praise Kyo Chang's crazily, letting the questioner feel what one-sided away disadvantage meant. Standing on the side of the winner with more people and beating the drowning dog brought these people a very strong pleasure. After all, in the Kunlun King sect, which emphasizes purity of mind and few desires, the daily life of cultivating immortals is very boring, and there are no variety shows to watch. Suddenly encountering such an event, everyone is almost overjoyed. "How do you feel?" The voice of Ziwi's sect master suddenly sounded beside him. This master has been standing at the edge of the venue for a long time. "Master." Zhu Yingyan hurriedly performed the disciple's salute, and then said bitterly, I am still not as good as my senior brother. I used to be able to see his back, but now it seems that I can't even see where he is." Yingyan. Ziwi's sect master said calmly, "You are still too persistent. He has his own path, and you have your own path. A tiger does not compete with an eagle for flight, so why should you compare too much on the road of cultivation?" Disciple knows his mistake. Zhuangyan sighed in his heart and lowered his head. "Yeah." Ziwi's sect master was a little surprised. "I still remember that during the time when I entered the sect, this girl stared at Qiu Chang's iron. When I said a few words to her, she put on an attitude of I know but I won't change, which made me, as a master, very headache. Now he actually knows to admit his mistakes. Whether he changes or not is another matter, but at least he is much less arrogant than before." Ziwi's sect master turned his gaze and landed on Jian Qingnan. "Are you, Jian Qingnan from the King Zhao Jian family?" "Why, hello, master." Jian Qingnan quickly followed suit and performed the disciple's salute. "No need to salute." Ziwi's sect master didn't care much about this nominal disciple, but just said lightly, "The King Zhao Jian family achieved enlightenment through magic, but sent you to Kunlun instead of Penglai. You should understand the meaning. In the future, you can't waste your practice on playing. If you have any questions, you should consult your senior sisters Yu and senior brother Qiu." Disciple knows. Jian Qingnan said in a low voice. Ziwi's sect master turned around and waved his whisk in front of him, and the crowd of onlookers was immediately separated by some invisible force. The elder of the discipline hall also flew forward on his sword and ordered everyone to leave in an orderly manner. First, the outermost disciples flew away on their swords, and then gradually moved inwards, taking off in order to avoid collisions. "Master is so fierce." Seeing Ziwi's sect master walking towards the center of the venue, Jian Qingnan came to his senses and whispered to Zhuangyan. "Fierce?" Zhuangyan shook his head, "Neither fierce nor unkind. It just depends on the person." In the center of the venue, Qiu Changtai saw the elders of the discipline hall above come out to interrupt, and he secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He was able to handle the initial questions calmly and with ease. But as the atmosphere on the field heated up, some senior brothers and sisters who were not used to it began to ask some tricky questions in various ways and asked him to debate and answer questions. Even though Qiu Changtai was knowledgeable and proficient in all methods, he was almost overwhelmed by these unfamiliar questions. Fortunately, if you're undecided about external affairs, ask Jin, and if you're undecided about internal affairs, ask Kingping. As for the strange and side roads such as formations and refining weapons, as long as it does not involve specific details, just discussing the mysterious road, Kunlun Mirror can give many interesting answers. When it comes to flying swords and sword control, Kingping is an expert in this area. In addition to the sword-related Taoism, it can even occasionally answer some of the regular Taoism questions. In this way, it survived without any danger and finally made it until the elders of the discipline hall arrived. Of course, Qiu Changtai also seriously suspected that those senior brothers and sisters who made things difficult for him actually didn't have many questions to ask. If he continued to ask, he would only be making trouble. Although it would not destroy his invincible personality, it would not look good on the master's side if this discussion ended in unpleasantness. Now that it was forcibly interrupted by the elders of the discipline hall, it seems okay. Qiu Changtai was calculating the gains and losses, and he saw Ziwi's sect master coming from the passage that separated the crowd and asked Qiu Changtai expressionlessly, "Did the group of immortals discuss Taoism and gain anything?" Reporting to the master, many things that I didn't understand in the past suddenly became clear after this debate. Qiu Changtai said respectfully. "How does it feel to be questioned by others?" Ziwi's sect master asked again. "I am very humbled and I am reluctant to answer." Qiu Changtai said modestly. "At least I didn't get carried away." Ziwi's sect leader raised his whisk and gently hit him on the head with the handle. "Next time you want to discuss that, invite a few close friends and have a casual chat in the cave. Why are you making such a big scene? If you continue to show off, aren't you afraid of attracting trouble and covetousness?" At the edge of the field, Songhe, who was about to leave, turned his head and saw Ziwi's sect leader hitting Qiu Changtai. He suddenly had an inexplicable bad premonition. Turning his head again, he saw that the elder of the discipline hall had already blocked him with a sword. He pointed at him lightly, and Songhe's true energy immediately stopped flowing and was sealed. "It's over." A flash of enlightenment flashed through his mind. He only wanted to kill Qiu Changtai with the help of the Engido. This move was too hasty, but he ignored the fatal risk. Once he got Qiu Changtai's information, he would lose his value. The Ingido could easily sell him to Kunlun through a middleman while issuing a wanted notice for Kyo Chang Tian, and ask for a suitable price. Maybe even the price of the wanted notice for Kyo Chang Tian was earned from Kunlun. Chapter 187 The Mystery of Time. The 275th generation chief disciple Song He has been arrested by the elders of the Discipline Hall because of the leak of his collusion with the demon sect. This heavy news spread quickly among the inner disciples, but was soon suppressed. It seemed that the Kunlun high-level officials took action. However, it was an ironclad fact that Song He did not come to the lecture of the Ziwili sect master. The disciples of the sect master at the scene looked at each other, and no one dared to ask questions about it. The Ziwili sect master was too lazy to explain, but the disciples behind him stepped forward one by one. So everyone was secretly shocked. After the lecture, Kyo Chang Tian privately found the Foundation Establishment senior brother Zhu Chang King to ask about Song He's situation. If you do too much evil, you'll die. Zhu Chang King obviously knew something, but just said it lightly. Senior brother Zhu. Kyo Chang Tian pretended not to believe it and continued to ask tentatively, what's going on? Is it possible that senior brother Song was wrongly accused, wronged? Zhu Chang King showed a strange expression, and then shook his head, it's unlikely. This time there is solid evidence and witnesses, and he can't deny it. There is actually a witness. Kyo Chang Tian was shocked. I heard that he was accused of colluding with the Ingido. Can the words of the demon cult be believed? It is true that he colluded with the demon cult, but the witness is a casual cultivator. Zhu Chang King said. A casual cultivator? Kyo Chang Tian became more and more suspicious, so he said goodbye to Zhu Chang King and flew to the discipline hall. Song He was plotting against him, so he certainly couldn't be unaware of it. However, Kyo Chang Tian's cultivation level was only the marrow-washing stage at the time, and the demon-locking tower trial was imminent, so he thought about rising to the palace transformation stage first, and then taking a chance to investigate it clearly. As a result, before he had time to investigate, Song He was suddenly killed by an outsider. What was going on? Arriving at the discipline hall, Kyo Chang Tian applied to see the relevant files. Junior brother Kyo, this is not in accordance with the rules. The discipline hall steward refused and said, regarding this case, the headmaster has already said that it will be handled strictly. How can I disclose the situation to you casually? The headmaster is my master. Kyo Chang Tian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If I didn't want to trouble him, I would have asked him in person a long time ago. The discipline hall steward thought about it and it made sense. Now that Song He has been imprisoned, when Zhu Chang King is promoted to the Golden Core realm, Kyo Chang Tian will take over the position of the chief of the Foundation Establishment realm. There is no need for him to get upset with him over such a matter. Moreover, as the victim of this case, it is reasonable for Kyo Chang Tian to inquire about the situation. Even if the details are disclosed to him, if the elders ask about it later, he can also say that it is because of the face of the headmaster. After all, Kunlun Tai King sect does not have any rules of governing the sect according to the law. As long as the elders of the discipline hall can be convinced, the headmaster will not pursue it, isn't it? That's fine, but junior brother Kyo, please don't spread this story to others, so as not to make things difficult for us. The deacon finally gave in with a difficult look on his face. Kyo Chang Tian naturally knew what the other party meant, and hurriedly made various promises, and asked the deacon's specific name to show his closeness. After following the deacon into the discipline hall, Kyo Chang Tian discovered that this place was built in the belly of the mountain, and the surrounding walls, ceilings and floors were all engraved with dense and familiar magic arrays. This discipline hall and the dungeon below are once places where prisoners of war were imprisoned in ancient Kunlun. Seeing that Kyo Chang Tian seemed to be interested, the discipline hall deacon introduced, but the construction time is much older than ancient Kunlun. We suspect that this is the same era as the Shushan locking demon tower. Look at these rooms that look like immortal seals. Kyo Chang Tian nodded slightly, looked around, but his steps did not stop at all, and soon came to the place where the files were stored. The deacon took the file out of the cabinet, handed it to Kyo Chang Tian and said, "You can only read it here, no traces can be left, and you are not allowed to take it away." Kyo Chang Tian thanked him and began to read the scroll. I saw that the witness had 4 big characters written on it. Casual cultivator Guo Jin. Leaving the discipline hall with full thoughts, Kyo Chang Tian couldn't help but sigh again on the way back to Jinlan Cave Mansion on his sword. Jin, do you think the future is really woven? Of course not. Kunlun Mirror knew what he was thinking, so he comforted him tactfully. If it is woven, then the world should face the fate of destruction. Why let you travel here? What if my travel is not outside the written destiny, but within the destiny? Kyo changed hindsight and said with melancholy, do you think there is such a possibility that all the destinies in this world are actually recorded in the plots in the books, and we are actually the protagonists in the novels? Shame on you. Kunlun Mirror said speechlessly, the protagonists in other people's novels are either scholars or kings. Do you think you are elegant and gentle like scholars, or as smart and capable as kings? Your character is not like a protagonist at all, okay? A Jing. Kyo changed and said earnestly, I don't know which era of romantic dramas you are reading, but novels with protagonists who are either Yashaja or Aolish have long been eliminated by the market. The protagonists of popular novels nowadays are all very perfect. They are handsome, suave, wise and brave, and courageous. These are all standard character settings. It is impossible to get by with just one label. What is Yashaja, Aolish? Kunlun Jing said helplessly, forget it, don't be so superstitious, just concentrate on doing the current things. That's the only way. Kyo Chang-tai nodded. Of course he knew what Kunlun Jing meant. It was nothing more than worrying that he would fall into the philosophical speculation of fatalism and lose his subjective initiative. I'm not someone who succumbs to fate so easily. Ah Jin, teleport. After returning to Jinlan Cave, Kyo Chang-tai cheered up and said, go to Adonliu and see what's going on. Okay. Kunlun Mirror began to read. Point 4. Tontime Gorge, Shipping Mounting. Character Identity. Wei Dongliu. Mirror Flower Water Moon template overwritten, traveling through time and space. Wei Dongliu got up from the bed and went to the next room to inspect the progress of the new disciples' practice. How is the practice going, Guo Jin? Reply to Master. Guo Jin replied, still opening up the Sea of Qi. Wei Dongliu glared and asked, after so many days, why are you still opening up the Sea of Qi? I'll give you another 2 weeks. If you can't open up the Sea of Qi, don't say you were my disciple, Wei Dongliu, in the future. Okay, Master. Guo Jin replied innocently. After Wei Dongliu left with his hands behind his back, Guo Jin became sad. Where did so many days come from? Didn't Master teach me the skills yesterday? Let's practice diligently. Wei Dongliu, who didn't realize that he had added time from other plot lines to his own plot to embarrass his disciples, returned to his residence in a huff. He opened the sealed altar and saw that the golden color of the 100 poisons gold and silkworm goo had extended to the second elytra. Very good, according to ancient records, the further it goes, the slower it will be, and it should take nearly a year to mature. Wei Dongliu cast a few more spells to activate the magic array in the room, and then took out the 10,000 Ghosts evil sword. As soon as the sword came out, there was another burst of ghost cries, but fortunately it was completely blocked by the formation, otherwise it would have disturbed the area within 100 miles. But if you want to use it outside, you can't set up a formation to isolate it every time you draw the sword. Let's refine it quickly. Chapter 188 What I Mounting Kaoyan Cave. Wei Dongliu sat upright on the bed, placing the Wangi Jin sword horizontally on his knees. The nested formations in the house, as well as the large formation in the valley outside the house, have all been activated. He went over the true spirit seal sword technique that King Ping Jian had taught him last time, carefully and repeatedly in his mind. Then he raised his left hand, and the Xiao Fu Shangyang sword energy erupted from his meridians, forming a white blade several feet long at his fingertips. Then, he used all his strength to operate the method, pressing the sword energy hard on the Wangi Jin sword. For a while, the sound of ghosts crying in the house was loud, but it was not the previous resentful sobbing, but the wailing of thousands of people. Pain, fear, resentment, despair, endless negative emotions poured in through the ear canal, causing Wei Dongliu's mind to tremble violently, and he almost lost it. Fortunately, the wailing of the 10,000 ghosts at this time was not driven by the true essence of the cultivator, so the lethality to the mind was limited. Soon, he endured the devil's sound piercing his ears, and rubbed the sword energy in his hand to the sword spine above his knees again and again, until the crying sound was completely weak, as if he had surrendered. If you cried casually outside in the future, I will kill all of you residual souls. Wei Dongliu sent a divine consciousness to the sword, and then began to refine it. Perhaps because it was threatened too hard, the 10,000 Ghosts evil sword just trembled without making a sound, allowing him to drip blood and infuse it with divine consciousness, and penetrate it from beginning to end. After refining, Wei Dongliu took out the cloth strip and said, "You're already a mature 11th level immortal sword. You must learn to wrap yourself up. The 10,000 Ghosts' evil sword trembled slightly, allowing him to put the cloth strip on the hilt, and then rotated vertically, wrapping the cloth strip tightly around the sword. It was perfect. Wei Dongliu was extremely satisfied. Because using this cloth strip to wrap the sword instead of a scabbard or a sword box will give people a feeling that the edge cannot be hidden. It fits the temperament of this mysterious boss very well. After adjusting the formation again, Wei Dongliu left the valiant plan to go to Mount Watai to take a look at the wanted order. Last time, accompanied by Witch Jiang, he was going to take a look, but he passed by the market and found the Wanggi Shi Jing sword. He had to come back quickly to put it away, but this time he couldn't delay any longer. Stepping on the Wanggi Shi Jing sword wrapped with cloth strips, he rushed all the way to Mount Watai. As a result, halfway through, he suddenly saw a purple stream of light coming towards him and stopped in front of him. What a coincidence! If it wasn't Witch Jiang, who else could it be? Doorway, why are you here? Jiang Lin said anxiously, that old Ghost Yan sold you out. Oh. Wei Dongliu remained calm. Although he did not go directly to the Ingido to confront him, he drugged the puppet to find Judge Wen Yang and sold the news about us to him. Jiang Lin spoke quickly and urgently, with a gloomy face. We're both wearing masks, so your identity has not been exposed yet, but Wen Yang already knows that I am from the Tianmo. So next, the Ingido will negotiate with the Tianmo? Wei Dongliu asked. That won't happen. Jiang Lin frowned and said, I guess old Ghost Yang can't produce any real evidence, so he can only give a rough description of the characteristics of the 10,000 Ghosts' evil sword to convince Wen Yang. But the 10,000 Ghosts' evil sword has been lost for many years. How can we be sure that the characteristics that old Ghost Yan described are whether he really got this sword or he read it from some ancient book? Therefore, Wen Yang will most likely not report to the sect, but will search along this clue alone and find the heavenly demon sect. Is that so? Wei Dongliu nodded to show that he knew. Is this Wen Yang you mentioned powerful? This man is extremely powerful in fighting, and there is almost no opponent among the same level. Jiang Lin said in a deep voice, if the English sect wants to select a number one person under the Golden Core, it must be Wen Yang without a doubt. It is said that he once fought with a Jin and Rancunchin level cultivator, and the opponent couldn't do anything to him in the end. In other words, he is a degraded version of Qiu Cheng Tian, Wei Dongliu thought to himself. Seeing that he had no intention of leaving, Jiang Lin became more and more embarrassed. He thought, I have exaggerated Wen Yang's strength so much, why does this guy still look so unconcerned? Does he not believe what I said? Or does he not think Wen Yang can find out his identity? Or even, is he sure that he can fight against Wen Yang and not lose? Jiang Lin is a suspicious person. Thinking of this, all the signs in the past were immediately connected in his memory. For example, when they first met, Wei Dongliu was indifferent to Tianmo Miao and Dafa. For example, when they met for the second time, Wei Dongliu still ignored the ghost water she prepared. This thing can make the unsuspecting Jin and Zenren fall into it. For example, he is proficient in various Taoist methods, sword control techniques and even formations. Maybe it is not because he is knowledgeable and gifted, but because this guy's cultivation is not at the foundation building stage at all. Continuing to think deeply, Jiang Lin became more and more uneasy. Could this guy really be a Jin and Zenren who has lived for a long time, or even a Yuning old monster? Wait, the old monster Yuning is too outrageous, but it is not impossible for Jin and Zenren. If he really has already formed a pill, why did he pretend to be at the Watful level and establish a sect in shipping mounting? It's like a big boss playing house with a little girl. By the way, fellow Daoist Jiang. Wei Dongliu said gently, last time I mentioned the wanted order of Fanshindo, but I don't know where it is in Watai mounting. Can you show me the way? Ah? Oh, sure. Jiang Lin was slightly startled, and then immediately showed a flower-like smile, which even had a bit of charm and flattery in it. I will show you the way now. Regardless of whether he is a disguised Jin and Zenren, let's get along with him first, and there will be a chance to use him in the future. After all, Witch Jiang is a member of the demon sect. Let alone outsiders, even the junior sisters, senior sisters and even the master of the same sect, in her heart at this time, are just a group of clearly marked objects of use. He immediately took Wei Dongliu to the north and said earnestly, this wanted order of the demon cult is in Kaoyan Cave in Watai Mountain. There is a cliff in Kaoyan Cave that was once cast by a great ancient being. The corresponding name can be engraved on it. Once the person represented by the name dies, the name will disappear from it. That's strange. Wei Dongliu remained calm, but was surprised in his heart. Qiu Cheng Tian is a pseudonym. How can it correspond to me? Or is it not actually corresponding to me, but to another person? In fact, it has a resonance with the character template of Duloxin Tongming engraved in my mirror. The mirror said helplessly, because if I don't let it produce a resonance, they will immediately know that Qiu Chang's Han is a pseudonym. I see, Jin, you did a good job. Wei Dongliu breathed a sigh of relief. In other words, it won't harm me through this resonance, right? That's natural. Chapter 189. Concealing Judge Wen and Bewitching Witch Jiang in Kaoyang Cave, Mount Watai. Various names are densely engraved on the rock wall. Every once in a while, debris falls from the rock wall, and with the disappearance of a name, that means another target has been harvested and killed. Wei Dongliu looked carefully and saw not only Qiu Chang's Han's name, but also Zhu Yinlian's, as well as Lin Yuanzhen, Juanfen Hegai, Yuan Jinu and Zisu. Staring at a name for a moment, the corresponding bounty information will appear in the mind. The bounties for others are still within the normal range, and as for Qiu Chang's Han's bounty, Wei Dongliu even has the urge to kill myself and then go to claim the bounty. Jianglin was also looking at the rock wall, but she was secretly peeping at Wei Dongliu from the corner of her eyes, observing the expression on his face. Why did this guy come to see the bounty? Is he planning to accept the bounty? Which Jiang followed his gaze, trying to lock on to the point where his eyes were, and said with a smile, "Does fellow Daoist Wei have a favorite target?" "No target, just looking around." Wei Dongliu said lightly. "Don't you want me to know?" Which Jiang's mind sank slightly. If she could figure out the criteria for his bounty selection, maybe she could arrange one for senior sister Ai. She was secretly thinking about something she couldn't tell anyone, and suddenly heard a slightly magnetic hoarse male voice from a distance. "Hey, isn't this fellow Daoist Jiang? Wen Yang is here." Jianglin quickly controlled all the muscles on his face and turned his head in surprise. "Hey, fellow Daoist Wen? Long time no see." Wen Yang pressed down the sword light, stepped on the ground, turned his eyes to Wei Dongliu and said, "This is, fellow Daoist Wei, the newcomer of Fanxingdo." Jianglin smiled slightly. "Fellow Daoist Wei, nice to meet you." Wen Yang said lazily, "I'm the judge of the Ingledo, Wen Yang." Wei Dongliu bowed and suddenly recognized the guy in front of him. He was the leader of the Ingledo demon cultivators that Qiu Chang's Han encountered when he led the team in the Earth Vein ruins on the west side of Longshan. The handsome man in beautiful clothes, but with a male voice, shocked Qiu Chang's Han and left a deep impression. However, the other party was still at the marrow washing stage at the time, but now it seems that he has been promoted to the palace transformation stage. The 6 parts of the demon cult have many kinds of quick success methods that can fully promote the growth of seedlings and quickly improve the realm of cultivation, but the passing rate of the heavenly tribulation is more touching. Fanxingdo, Wei Dongliu. He also introduced himself and noticed that Wen Yang's eyes lingered on the cloth-wrapped longsword behind him for a moment. "Which Taoist school does fellow Daoist Wei inherit?" Wen Yang asked with a smile. He was dressed gorgeously, with dark green sleeves, silver-lined edges, and a green bone hairpin, and his long black hair was elegantly tied up. If it weren't for the voice, one wouldn't have known he was a man. "Wanfei Tongshuan sect," Wei Dongliu said in a deep voice. "The Taoist lineage of Tongshuan Wanfei's Hinran." Wen Yang's face showed a little surprise. "Fellow Daoist Wen also knows this name?" Jianglin said with a smile, but he was not surprised. After all, the Heavenly Demon sect and the Inghost sect have preserved the most complete various classics and materials of the Jiao. "I've only heard a little bit about it." Wen Yang smiled slightly. "I heard that the Immortal is proficient in everything, especially good at innovation, and has the best sword-making skills in the world, and many famous swords come from his hands. To be honest, I like to watch swords the most in my life, but I regret that I was not born in the era of that Immortal and discuss the methods of famous swords with him. By the way, I have been wanting to ask since just now. How sharp is the sword on the back of Brother Wei that the scabbard and sword box can't contain it, and can only be wrapped with cloth strips?" Jiang Monu kept smiling beside her, but her heart was already in turmoil. In an instant, she prepared at least 13 ways to run away immediately. "Although it's abrupt, Brother Wei, can you lend me the flying sword to watch it in your palm?" Wen Yang continued to smile, but there was a chill in his eyes. "Since it's abrupt, why make such a request?" Wei Dongliu asked calmly. "I can't wait to mention it." Wen Yang put his hands in his sleeves, giving the impression that he was casting a spell, and his face was still smiling. "I believe that fellow Daoist Wei will not make it difficult for me." Wei Dongliu looked at him silently, and Wen Yang responded with a smile. The two looked at each other for a long time. "Well, Wei Dongliu reached out to touch the longsword behind him, and Wen Yang narrowed his eyes slightly. However, the opponent did not launch an attack, but just calmly took the sword from his back and threw it over casually. Wen Yang caught it, and the smile on his face quickly faded. He solemnly untied the cloth strips layer by layer, revealing the dark purple sword body underneath. Although it is indeed close to dark black, there are too many swords with this luster, and there is no sound of thousands of ghosts crying when the cloth strips are untied. Wen Yang stroked the spine of the sword with his slender fingers, and it was cold where he touched, but it was just the kind of coolness on the surface of the metal, not the coldness of the soul leaving the body. It is indeed not the 10,000 demon sword. As his mind turned, a smile reappeared on his face, and he said, "It is a really good sword." "Who are you scolding?" Wei Dongliu raised his eyebrows. "Water system?" Wen Yang asked. "Water system level 10. Wei Dongliu replied. "Is it a Taoist method or a forbidden method on the sword?" Wen Yang asked again. "What is a forbidden method?" Wei Dongliu is not fooled. "Please help me, fellow Taoist Wen." "Fellow Taoist Wei, you are joking." Wen Yang returned the immortal sword to him and took out a pill bottle from his sleeve, soul clearing and soul cleansing pills. After taking them, you can slightly increase the speed of transformation, but they are slightly toxic, so don't take too much. "Thank you." Wei Dongliu put the immortal sword on his back again. "You're welcome." Wen Yang bowed and saluted the two of them. "I have something else to do, so I'll leave first." He drug the sword light away and disappeared into the sky. Witch Jing turned around, her beautiful eyes flowing, full of curiosity. When Wen Yang untied the cloth strip just now, she could see it clearly. It was definitely the Wang Shi Jing sword that old Ghost Yan sold last time. The problem is, Wen Yang has already used it. Why didn't he recognize it? If Judge Wen Yang is blind, it must be nonsense. If he says that he saw it wrong, it seems even more impossible. This guy, how many secrets does he hide? Thinking of this, Witch Jing can hardly take her eyes off Wei Dongliu. Wei Dongliu just smiled and said nothing about her curiosity and desire for knowledge, and he was secretly happy. The key to hiding from Wen Yang lies in the illusion of flowers in the mirror moon in the water cast by Kunlun mirror, which Jing will never guess. Because of this, the synchronization value of the mysterious character began to soar again. Sure enough, to brush the synchronization value of this kind of character, you have to find a smart and curious person like Witch Jing. Thinking carefully, it seems that there is an object around each of my characters that is convenient for brushing synchronization value. Qiu Chain Time's invincible personality needs to be shown off, so there is a proud and strong-willed junior sister like Zhu Yinyan. Ling Yunpo's unyielding personality needs to be fought, so there is a senior sister like Anzisu who is hostile to everyone. Luo Yan's hypocritical personality needs to be deceived, so there is a silly and naive eldest lady like Xie Luli. Now, Wei Dongliu's mysterious personality needs suspense, and he is very lucky to meet a lovely Taoist friend like Jing who likes to think too much and is vigilant. If you like to think too much, you will notice the many mysteries of Wei Dongliu. If you are vigilant, you will not ask directly, but think about it repeatedly in your heart. The synchronization value is here. Fellow Taoist Jing. Wei Dongliu suppressed his joy and said lightly, "As neighbors in the future, we have to interact more." Jing. This guy, is he coveting my beauty? She secretly became wary in her heart, and she smiled sweetly and said in a delicate voice, "That's right, we must interact more." Chapter 190 Selling Songhe directly on the spot. Fellow Taoist Wei, are you going back? No hurry. Where else do you want to go? I can lead the way for you. I want to find a disciple, but Yuo Jin alone is not enough. Jing burst into laughter, and her charming and delicate face immediately seemed to be in full bloom, making it difficult for people to look away. I have said it before, although Yuo Jin is a loyal and honest kid, he is still a little dull as a senior disciple. So, fellow Taoist Wei, are you planning to find someone smart this time? Yeah. Wei Dongliu nodded and said, it would be better if you can call her Wang Rong. Jing. Does the name Wang Rong have any special meaning? She did not ask much, but just kept it in mind. The two were about to fly up on their swords again when they suddenly saw En Yang coming back. He came back to the two of them and said to Jing with a smile, "I almost forgot, I heard that Taoist Jing is proficient in the 10 phases of interpretation, which is difficult for even a Immortal Cultivator to see through. I wonder if it's true or not." Taoist Wen is too kind. Jing refused to admit it, but smiled and said, "It's just a trifling skill, not worth mentioning." Wen Yang pondered for a moment and said, "In fact, I have a business here, and I want to share it with Taoist Jing." "Business?" Jianglin was slightly surprised. Yes. When Yang turned his head to look at Wei Dongliu, and seeing that he had no intention of leaving, he said, "It's a business about the Orthodox Church." Jianglin immediately understood. The 3 pure ones of the Orthodox Church and the 6 parts of the demonic church, although on the surface they're irreconcilable, they are also fighting each other in private. But if both parties have the need to exchange interests, they can also make some transactions secretly. For example, a demon sect disciple got a sword, which happened to be what a certain Orthodox sect disciple had been looking for, so he wanted to sell it to him, okay? Yes. The only hidden danger is that the other party may choose to trade first and kill later, and get both money and goods directly. After all, on the surface, good and evil cannot coexist, and killing the other party is politically correct, and there is no need to worry about the bad reputation of killing for money. Even if the sect behind him knows about it, it will not punish him in this regard. Therefore, a safer way came into being, that is, to entrust the transaction to a third-party neutral cultivator to trade with the other party on his behalf, so that the other party does not have the righteousness to overturn the table. This cultivator must be strong so that the other party will not have the idea of killing and seizing goods, otherwise once the matter is leaked, the sect will not be able to justify it, and the Orthodox sect is particularly sensitive in this regard. At the same time, this cultivator must be someone he can trust, so that the other party will not directly take the money and goods and run away. In this way, it is even more difficult to find a candidate. The reason why Wen Yang chose Jianglin, who was proficient in the 10-phase explanation of the law, was because she could use illusion to pretend to be a casual cultivator and trade with a certain Orthodox sect. Another reason was that Jianglin was born in a heavenly demon sect, and would not abandon her master for such a small amount of money. She was much safer than ordinary casual cultivators. Thinking of this, Jianglin shook her head and declined politely. "It's a pity, fellow Daoist Wen. Although the 10-phase explanation of the law can disguise oneself, it is not flawless. I can't put myself in danger for this reason. I can give you 30% of the amount returned from the transaction." Wen Yang raised 3 fingers. Jianglin hesitated for a moment, but still shook her head. In the past, she might have agreed to it. That's a 30% transaction profit. You know, even the casual cultivator brokers in the cultivation world only charge a transaction fee of 5% at most. However, since the last time on was Fairy Island, when a disciple of Pengliu King Temple saw through her illusion disguise, Jianguich has been much more cautious in this regard. It is good to have money, but if you may lose your life for it, it is not worth it. Okay. Wen Yang retracted his finger, but there was no disappointment on his face. "It seems that my business cannot be done." "Wait a minute." Wei Dongliu suddenly said, "Fellow Daoist Wen just needs someone to help, right?" "That's right." Wen Yang turned his eyes to him, thinking that this person is the successor of the Taoist lineage of Chietong and Wanfei's Hinren. I remember that Wanfei's Hinren first practiced the superior magic skills, and then he woke up for some reason and changed to practice Chuan Menki refining. As a result, the disciples with higher seniority in his sect all practiced the superior magic skills with him in their early years. The disciples with lower seniority and who had just entered the sect all practiced Chuan Menki refining. The two sides were clearly divided, and their attitudes were also clearly opposed. They all believed that their own cultivation path was the best, so that there was a subtle dispute over the Taoist lineage. Later, in order to solve this problem, Van Fesenrum went out to look for inspiration and wanted to create a key refining technique that could transform the clear and turbid key into each other, but he never came back, and it also laid the groundwork for the subsequent split and destruction of Van Fe Tongshuan sect. Of course, let's not talk about the past first. Since this fellow has inherited the Taoist tradition of Wan Fe's Hinren, will he also practice the Chuan Menki refining technique? The superior magic skills circulate a large amount of clear ki and a small amount of turbid ki. The former is used for breathing and refining the body, and the latter is good at fighting and killing. Although the turbid ki is refined into demonic ki, it has greater lethality, but it is as strong as the smell of a toilet. Once contaminated, it is impossible to escape from the consciousness of the orthodox monks. But if you practice Chuan Menki refining technique from the beginning, there will be no problem. Wen Yang's thinking mode is similar to Jianglin, or in other words, the elite disciples of the demon sect today, who stand out in an environment full of dangers, all like to think about the problem carefully in their hearts, and then try it step by step without making a sound. Therefore, he thought about it for a long time before slowly asking, "Doorway, do you have experience dealing with the Orthodox Church?" "I dare not call it experience," Wei Dongliu said calmly, "I just have some understanding of the Orthodox Church." Wen Yang pondered for a moment and cast his eyes on Jianglin. Jianglin smiled slightly and took a half step towards Wei Dongliu. So Wen Yang immediately understood and said seriously, "Do I have Jiang's friend as my friend, Wen? I trust him. What do you think about the 30% profit you agreed on? Profit is not important. What's important is that I also want to make friends with Doi Wen." Wei Dongliu smiled faintly. Wen Yang immediately burst into laughter. Although his laughter was generous and heroic, it was a bit irritating with his gentle appearance. Okay, let's find a place to talk about it in detail. The three of them found a dilapidated temple nearby. After confirming that there was no one around, Wen Yang slowly told the story. Songhe, the 275th chief disciple of Kunlun Taiking sect, found me privately a few days ago and wanted to use my hand to get rid of his junior brother Qiu Changtian. Oh? Jianglin raised the corner of his mouth and said in a long voice, "I didn't expect that the Orthodox sect was righteous on the surface, but was even more despicable than us in private. At least we're openly challenging our fellow disciples." "That's right." Wen Yang glanced at her lightly, without exposing her whitewashing, and just continued, "I explored an ancient ruin in my early years and met Kunlun Songhe. We did establish some friendship, so he asked me for help this time." Jianglin smiled but said nothing. "Friendship? I'm afraid it's more than that. There should be common interests." "What common interests can an elite disciple of Taiking sect and an elite disciple of Ying leader have? It's nothing more than exchanging secret information of the Orthodox or demon sect without telling the master. Of course, this matter is too sensitive, and Wen Yang will definitely not admit it. In other words, now that the friendship is ended, Brother Wen is planning to sell Songhe to Kunlun Taiking sect, right?" Wei Dongliu, who had been silent all the time, suddenly spoke out. Wen Yang slightly widened his eyes, thinking that this man's thinking is very sharp. He was able to guess my intentions in advance, but he sneered. "Friendship is like money. It will eventually run out. Originally, I thought that Songhe would definitely be able to get the next chief at the Foundation establishment realm of Kunlun, so I condescended to make friends with him in advance. But I didn't expect that Qiu Changtian would suddenly appear and abruptly cut off Songhe's path to the top. I have also heard about Qiu Changtian recently." Which Jiang showed a thoughtful expression. "According to the bounty information, it is said that this person is a heart of Taoism that is rare in 1,000 years. "That's right." Wen Yang said with a grim expression, "Heart of Taoism, I don't need to say more, you can find out how powerful it is in the classics. With Qiu Changtian, Songhe is no longer worth making friends with. If he doesn't contact me in the future, it will be fine, but he gave this handle to me. If I don't make good use of it, how can I be worthy at the title of judge given to me by my master?" Chapter 191. Accepting a second disciple. A few days ago, a casual cultivator came to me. Wen Yang explained the whole story in a low voice. He said that Kunlun was planning to buy the information of the traitor at a high price. "It's really strange." Jianglin said, "There was a traitor in the Orthodox sect who leaked the information of the master to the demon sect, and then the Orthodox sect went to the demon sect to buy the information of this traitor. After all, Qiu Changtian is now the treasurer of Kunlun Taiking sect." Wen Yang also sneered, "And the bounty information is so detailed that even the characteristics and defects of his practice are clearly marked. How can the top leaders of Kunlun sit still? They can't do anything about the bounty, but if Qiu Changtian is not allowed to go out, there is no worry. But the damn traitor is still in the sect, that is a big hidden danger. So you plan to sell Songhe to Kunlun?" Jianglin nodded. Wei Dongliu listened quietly at the side and had a deep understanding of that demon sect. In a nutshell, profit comes first. Even the Orthodox sect knew this, so they specially entrusted the casual cultivators to pass the message to see if they could buy the information of the traitor. Wen Yang actually planned to accept it. It can be seen that as long as the benefits are enough, nothing is impossible. I recorded the message in this jade slip. Wen Yang took out a jade slip and threw it to Wei Dongliu. The problem now is how to use it to trade with Kunlun. Among the three pure ones in the Orthodox sect, Kunlun Taiking sect is the most hypocritical. Jianglin also sneered, "When dealing with Taiking sect, don't worry that they will attack you directly, but be sure to beware of the hidden arrows from behind." Wei Dongliu. "But forget it, how does Kunlun Taiking sect treat the demon sect members? Don't I know? No one knows Kunlun better than me." "Then, I'll have to trouble you, Brother Wei." Wen Yang glanced at Jianglin again. "After the matter is done, you can ask Brother Jiang to bring you to find me." Jianglin sneered in his heart. Wen Yang was still worried and hinted that he would guarantee Wei Dongliu. But according to her observation, Wei Dongliu was not the kind of person who will be blinded by money. Of course, even if she is wrong, she has her own way to clear herself from Wei Dongliu. So she just kept silent. Seeing her acquiesce, Wen Yang was relieved, and heard Wei Dongliu say again, "However, I was planning to recruit disciples today. Is this urgent?" "I believe that fellow Daoist Wei will not keep me waiting for long," Wen Yang said tactfully. This statement was so ambiguous that even the shameless Jingmonu couldn't help but roll her eyes. "By the way, what kind of disciples does fellow Daoist Wei plan to recruit?" Wen Yang continued with a smile, "I have lived in Helluo and Jinan for a long time, maybe I can help. Of course, if you want to find a disciple with extraordinary talent, it will be a bit difficult." "It doesn't need any extraordinary talent." Wei Dongliu waved his hand, "as long as he is smart, smooth, and can talk." Jianglin chuckled, and Wen Yang was a little embarrassed and a little annoyed when he heard it. He thought Wei Dongliu was mocking him, but looking at Wei Dongliu's expression, it didn't seem like that. He noticed Jianglin's sarcastic smile from the corner of his eye, and immediately realized that he was overthinking. "I see," Wen Yang said seriously. "So, fellow Daoist Wei is planning to recruit a disciple to handle the mundane affairs of the sect?" "That's right," Wei Dongliu said. "I recommend looking for one among the business families," Wen Yang said with a smile, "probably because businessmen have to deal with all kinds of dignitaries and all kinds of people, so they are more flexible in both their personalities and their ways of doing things. The only disadvantage is that it is extremely difficult to find one among them with better talent for cultivation." "That's fine," Wei Dongliu said, "just don't be too bad." Wen Yang knew what was going on and estimated that Wei Dongliu was not looking for any disciples, but just wanted to find a nominal worker. He immediately smiled and said, "That's good, we can go to Luoan first." The three of them flew into the air from the mountain on their swords, only to hear Wen Yang say again, "In terms of business, Luoan is much richer than Yunzthong and Jinsthong. Among them, there are 120 wealthy merchants with extremely prominent family backgrounds. They often send all kinds of resources to my sect, hoping to let their children enter the Tao. But there are not many disciples in their clan who have barely decent aptitude for cultivation. If fellow Daoist Wei doesn't mind, I will take you two to visit these families." After arriving in Luoyang, Wen Yang took the two to the Wang family's residence. In terms of the wealth of Luoyang, the Wang family is probably the first. The clan leader Wang Lin is currently the Minister of Revenue of the Great Xia dynasty. It can be said that power is hot at the moment. Of course, compared with the Immortal Cultivation families such as the Zhu family in Tainan and the Yuan family in Longxi, it is far inferior. These families have basically completely cut off their dependence on the secular regime, while the Wang family is still pursuing status and power in the court. Hearing that Wen Yang, the elite judge of the Yingli, was visiting, the clan leader Wang Lin, who was on vacation today, immediately came out to greet him and asked the immortal about his purpose in fear and trepidation. "I have nothing to do with you." Wen Yang pointed to Wei Dongliu next to him and said, "It's my fellow Taoist who intends to find a registered disciple from you to handle the secular affairs of the sect." Wang Lin hurriedly ordered the servants to notify all the young men in the clan to come over and stand in a row in the courtyard, allowing Wei Dongliu to choose. Wei Dongliu looked at everyone carefully. Most of the people here are under 20 years old, probably because those older disciples have been screened again and again, and basically confirmed that they have no talent for cultivation. There are more women than men, which is clearly a little trick of the Wang family head. If Wei Dongliu likes beautiful women, then women are more likely to win that bid. If not, it doesn't matter. As Wei Dongliu's eyes swept over, most people bowed their heads respectfully, and a few boldly looked up at him. A few beautiful ones even blinked, wanting to flirt but not daring to, looking pitiful. "A Jing?" Wei Dongliu asked in his sea of consciousness, "How were these people's talents in cultivation?" "The 3rd and 15th in the first row. The 22nd in the second row, their talents are the best among these people." Kumlan Mira replied, "But they're only okay in comparison. If these three people go to Kumlan Tai King sect to become disciples, they probably won't even be able to reach the threshold of outer disciples. That's for sure." Wei Dongliu disagreed. "Only the orthodox sects consider qualifications when recruiting disciples. We in the demon sect teach everyone, and it's enough to have barely enough talent." He raised his arm and pointed out the three people scanned by Kumlan Mira one by one, motioning them to step out. The two teenagers in the first row are both handsome and weak. Wei Dongliu chatted with them for a few words and found that the two actually had a good foundation in poetry and books. It's a pity that they have been studying since childhood and have almost no experience in handling clan affairs. The second row was a girl, whose appearance was not absolutely beautiful, and was completely different from Jingmonu and Wenrinyo, but compared with the appearance of others, she was indeed dignified and regular. Just a pair of dark eyes, always rolling around, not looking honest. What's your name? My name is Wang Jun, the girl replied. Jinglin frowned slightly, because the original meaning of June is climbing plant, which has a derogatory meaning. Wang Lin hurriedly explained. She is the daughter of my fourth brother, and I gave her a cheap name so that she can be raised more easily. This is of course a whitewashing excuse. In fact, it must be because she was born out of wedlock, so the name was not given much attention. Wei Dongliu didn't care about that, but continued to ask, have you ever been a businessman? I ran a medicine shop under my mother's name. The girl had already noticed that this immortal seemed to particularly like people with business experience, so she acted on her own initiative. On weekdays, I accompanied the shopkeeper grandfather to buy medicinal materials, bargain, deal with patients seeking medical treatment, and collect debts. Okay. Wei Dongliu waved his hand and said, it's you. Chapter 192. Master Wei Dongliu. Wen Yang was still somewhat puzzled when he returned to Mount Watai. This fellow Daoist Wei Dongliu was too casual in recruiting disciples. He had not even carefully investigated the girl's talent for cultivation. He just asked a few questions and decided to accept her. You know, if her talent and aptitude are not good, she will have a hard time in that future on the road of cultivation, and may even give up on herself, affecting the efficiency of handling worldly affairs. There are precedents in the history of various sects. Fellow Daoist Wei is still too young after all. Thinking of this, Wen Yang was less wary of him. After saying goodbye to each other, Wen Yang turned around and left. Wei Dongliu took Wang Jun and Jinglin to the south and flew towards Tongtime Gorge. Back in Shipping Mountain, Wei Dongliu called Yuo Jin, who was still practicing in the house, out and introduced the two brothers and sisters to each other. Yuo Jin, you'll be her senior brother in the future. You'll be responsible for guiding her through the 3 levels as Kidong and Kidong. Jinglin, who was listening nearby, almost vomited blood. She just became your disciple, and you actually threw her to that stupid boy to teach. You're such a lazy master. Wei Dongliu was very satisfied, not knowing that Jing the witch was criticizing him. This trick of cultivating first and then guiding the later to achieve joint improvement in cultivation was the management method he learned from the head of Ziwei sect, and it seems to be really useful now. In the future, all junior brothers and sisters who enter the sect will be guided by Yuo Jin. Wang Jun was also a little dumbfounded when she heard this. Why does this master look so unreliable? However, she was thoughtful after all, and saw that the fairy sister next to her was also a little unhappy, but she did not directly raise any objections, which meant that her cheap master might not be easy to talk to. Therefore, she silently endured it, thinking that if the master was not easy to talk to in the future, she could save the country in a roundabout way from this fairy sister. After Wei Dongliu and Jinglin left, Yuo Jin took out the scriptures copied by his master in a serious manner, and said to Wang Jun in earnest, Junior sister Wang, let me read to you the principles of the Big U technique first. I dare not disturb you for too much time. Wang Jun said with a sweet smile, why don't I read it myself and ask you if you have any questions? Yuo Jin thought silently for a few minutes, then shook his head and said, no. What if you misunderstood and thought you had no problem, but actually went astray? If the foundation is laid wrong, the more you practice Taoism later, the more troublesome it will be. This is what the master said. Wang Jun wanted to persuade her brother with sweet words, but Yuo Jin ignored her and just read it to her by himself. Did you remember it? I remember it all. Wang Jun nodded quickly like a chick pecking at rice. Well, I'll read it again, and this time you have to try to understand. Outside the house, at the edge of the pond, Jinglin lifted the hem of her robe slightly, like a girl gracefully lifting the hem of her skirt to avoid getting it dirty by the wet mud under her feet. She squatted down carefully, pinched the flower stem of the jade orchid with her slender fingers, and sniffed it gently under her nose. Wei Dongliu was speechless watching from the side. Are you taking an artistic photo? You're still posing here. Fellow Daoist Wei is so knowledgeable that he is even good at growing spiritual medicines. Jinglin said dimly, I also tried to grow this jade orchid, but none of them survived, so I had to buy it. The roots of this jade orchid like moisture and are afraid of light, but the flowers and leaves need ventilation and sunlight, which is why it is difficult to grow. Wei Dongliu explained, in order to ensure that the roots and flowers are in different environments, they need to be separated by formations. I'm very curious. Jinglin suddenly stood up and put her delicate and beautiful face forward, breathing like orchid, and said in a delicate voice, I'm very curious. Is the Taoist tradition of Wanfei Tongshuan Men really so vast and all-encompassing? Otherwise, how can it be called Wanfei? Wei Dongliu tilted his head back slightly, but saw that Witch Jing suddenly took another step forward and kissed him directly. When their lips were about to touch, she suddenly stopped, then turned around gracefully, poked her cheek with her green fingers, and said thoughtfully, "You have some truth in what you said." After being tricked by this witch, Wei Dongliu could not see that the other party was deliberately teasing him. "This female devil has bad intentions. I advise you to have less contact with her," Kunlun Mirror suddenly said in the sea of consciousness. Why did she suddenly dare to test it boldly? Wei Dongliu frowned and asked, "Is there something wrong with the mirror flower and water moon, and you found it?" "How could there be a problem with my mirror flower and water moon?" Kunlun Mirror immediately got angry, and he was a little guilty, and said in defense, "Even if there is a problem, it is your role-playing that is wrong." Indeed. Wei Dongliu thought carefully and it seemed to be right. For him, Arjun is like a system in a system text. How could there be a problem? Do you still need to find that fragment of the sky-making stone? If there is a problem, then don't save the world, find a place to bury yourself as soon as possible. Seeing him standing there without any reaction, Jiang Lin's heart skipped a beat. Is he angry? Wait, don't get angry with me yet, I still want to use you to kill my senior sister. The two looked at each other with ulterior motives for a moment, and only heard Wei Dongliu say, "I'll go and see how they are doing." Typical escapism, Kunlun Jin thought to himself. "I'll go too." Jiang Lin smiled immediately. Contrary to escapism, this female devil likes to take the initiative to attack, and she has a strong curiosity and desire for control, Kunlun Jin thought to himself. The two returned to the room and saw Wang Jun sitting on the bed, meditating and practicing. Guo Jin held the scriptures and said to Wei Dongliu honestly, "Master, my junior sister asked me some questions, I don't quite understand." He repeated these questions, and Wei Dongliu was overwhelmed. "You have to ask such a simple question?" Wei Dongliu said impatiently, "Didn't I explain it last time?" "Master, you explained another question last time, do you understand the analogy?" Wei Dongliu stared. Oh. Guo Jin was also an honest child. He didn't dare to say anything after being scolded by his master. He could only look at Jiang Lin next to him for help. If you want to ask a senior, just ask directly. What are you looking at? Wei Dongliu continued to scold. Disciple wants to ask Senior Jiang, Guo Jin stuttered. No problem, you tell me. Jiang Lin pulled Guo Jin to sit on the chair next to him, took the scroll from his hand, and explained it to him in detail, but his eyes quickly scanned the contents on the pages, trying to get a glimpse of Wei Dongliu's Taoist traces. Unfortunately, the method of fasting on it was very basic, and it was impossible to see where it came from. Do you have any other questions? I'll just explain it for you. Jiang Lin was a little disappointed and said casually. Okay, there are still these questions. Guo Jin repeated all the questions that had accumulated so far. Jiang Lin answered them absent-mindedly, still speculating and analyzing in his heart. Guo Jin's attitude and understanding were ridiculously poor. Why did Wei Dongliu accept him as his eldest disciple? What was the special intention behind this? Could it be that he really had some hidden extraordinary qualities that I just couldn't see? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Mundo Fanfic Novelers, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelers. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 193 Jiang occupies Wei Kai now. It's winter. Wei Dongliu suddenly said. The two stood on the top of Shipping Mountain, watching the snowflakes fluttering down. The river water flowing through Tongtime Gorge below is also mostly frozen. Every time winter comes, I want to sleep very much. Jiang Lin yawned, I always can't wake up. You can try the Taoist meditation. Wei Dongliu suggested. What meditation? I'm enjoying the tranquility of sleep, okay? Jiang Lin said speechlessly. Wei Dongliu laughed dumbly and shook his head. How come this Jiang Witch is the same as Mishi? It's just that Mishi is obsessed with food, while Jiang Witch is obsessed with sleep. Thinking about it carefully, senior sister seems to like drinking very much. Only junior sister's Yu has no hobbies. She practices every day except cultivation. She is really a role model for cultivators of my generation. Thinking of the three of them, Wei Dongliu suddenly woke up again. As Wei Dongliu came to Mount Watai, it has been a long time without realizing it. This is probably the longest time I have stayed in a certain place with a certain identity. Thinking carefully, the reason is very simple. The days in What I Mountain are too peaceful, which is not like the life of a demon cult monk. In cunning, Kyo-Chang has to lecture his junior brothers and sisters every day, and he has to practice diligently as an example. He also has to find other fellow disciples to debate and brush synchronization points every now and then, just like an office worker. In Shushan, Ling Yunpo has to practice swordsmanship with his senior sister every day, practice swordsmanship and practice with his senior sister every now and then. He is ravaged by her in various ways, which is almost the same as the postgraduate entrance examination. In Penglai, Luoyan has to chat with Mishi every day to relieve boredom, go to the market, eat, choose clothes and jewelry, and complain about elder Shiding and other senior brothers and sisters, just like college students. Only here, in the southern part of What I Mountain, in Shipping Mountain, when he is with Jianglin, Wei Dongli you can get rare freedom and peace. There is no sect, no master, and no senior sisters and junior sisters who need to be served. There is only a lot of and ample disposable time. The life of a casual cultivator is so unrestrained. If she wants to practice, she practices. If she doesn't want to practice, she teaches the two disciples. Although Jianglin has the personality of a little witch, her emotional intelligence is also ridiculously high. She always speaks in a way that makes people feel like spring breeze, and from time to time she gives some small benefits that make people blush and heartbeat. I'm a little curious, fellow Daoist Jiang. Wei Dongliu said slowly, your master doesn't seem to care much about you. We in the Heavenly Demon Dro have always emphasized free competition. Jianglin said with a smile, for the master, we have given you the corresponding secret methods of practice, and the rest depends on you. Whether you practice slowly, die of old age, or die of a natural disaster, die of the hands of hostile cultivators, or even die of the hands of your fellow disciples, it's because you are not as skilled as others, and the sect has no need to protect you. Isn't this social Darwinism? Wei Dongliu said sarcastically. What Darwin? Jianglin asked curiously. Nothing. Wei Dongliu said thoughtfully, do you think I can also use this method to let Yuojin and Bangjun compete freely and make progress spontaneously? Jianglin. So you don't want to learn the good things, but you have to learn the bad things, right? After watching on the top of the mountain for a while, the two gradually felt a little cold, so they planned to return to the warm Tongshuan men residence. In the belly of Shipping Mountain, Yuojin and Bangjun have completed the fasting, and are breathing in and out to refine Qi and open up the Sea of Qi. Yuojin's cultivation speed is slow, but his foundation is quite solid, and he has a thorough grasp of the eliminating demons and clearing the Soul Sutra. Bangjun's progress is faster, but he likes to take shortcuts in many places. His understanding of the eliminating demons and clearing the Soul Sutra often has subtle deviations, and it all depends on Yuojin to correct her. Of course, Yuojin was not a person with high comprehension. Whenever he encountered problems in understanding the scriptures, no matter how simple the problem was, he would ask his master about it, which made Wei Dongliu so annoyed that he pushed everything he could to Jiangmo Envy. However, Bangjun had recently secretly reported to his master about Jiangmo Envy's probing of the sect's Qi refining technique. Although the design of this demon exorcising and purifying sutra was quite ingenious, Wei Dongliu, who had the 9 heavens pure and subtle entry true words, would not treat it as a secret that was strictly prohibited from being leaked, so he allowed Jianglin to test it. Jianglin would certainly not miss this opportunity, and almost answered all the questions of the two people in great detail. But before answering, he had to ask the two people about many details of the demon exorcising and purifying sutra in the name of confirming the problem. Yuojin was fine, but Bangjun was a little tearful. On the one hand, she realized that this fairy sister had bad intentions and had ulterior motives in answering their questions. On the other hand, the serious and responsible attitude of Sister Shangxian when answering questions is really much better than that of Master. Forget it, since Master doesn't care, it's not my turn as a small Qi refining disciple to worry about it. Sister Jiang, I have a question to ask you. Seeing Jianglin coming in from outside, she greeted her diligently and said sweetly. What's the question? Jianglin smiled. She also had a very good impression of this little girl. On the one hand, her personality and intelligence were very similar to hers, and on the other hand, her past situation of being unpopular in the Wang family made Jianglin empathize with her involuntarily. Of course, the other party was always on guard against herself, which made Jianglin feel a little bit of a sense of jvu. You were mistaking this for what you were thinking. After hearing Wang Jun's question, Jianglin smiled and explained, clear ki is agile, while turbid ki is dull, so the two types of ki have different roots. Clear ki is used to support your circulation, so you need to store it in the ki sea and circulate it in the meridians. Turbid ki is used to drive magic, fight and kill people, but it has the characteristic of being difficult to remove pollution, so it must be wrapped with several times more clear ki, and it must not be allowed to leak out. Of course, when you reach the Wafu stage, the clear ki will condense into true essence, and the turbid ki will condense into demonic ki. At the time, you will have a deep understanding of it. I see, thank you, Sister Jiang. Wang Jun was also very good at talking. She knew that the title of sister made Jiang the witch happier than senior, so there was no need to explain the specific reason. As soon as Wang Jun left, Guo Jin ran over from the other side and said respectfully, Senior Jiang, I also have a few questions to ask you. Yes, what questions? Jianglin asked patiently. After listening to Guo Jin's questions, Jianglin couldn't help but sigh at the delicacy of these questions, and simplicity, so he explained them to him in the most straightforward way. After listening to them, Guo Jin suddenly realized, bowed again to express his gratitude, and then left. Jianglin looked at his back and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Wang Jun is a girl with a lively mind, but her shortcoming is that she is a little impetuous and doesn't understand many things. Guo Jin's persistence in details is perfect, but the problem is that he doesn't know how to grasp the big and let go of the small, and he has to think about some insignificant questions for a long time. However, since entering the door, these two disciples have indeed grown amazingly, especially in terms of mutual cooperation and learning from each other. Guo Jin is dull, so Wang Jun often gives him pointers to open his mind. Wang Jun is impatient, so Guo Jin grabs her to study and think carefully. Seeing these two disciples becoming more and more outstanding, Jianglin also has a sense of accomplishment that his own disciples are gradually becoming talents in his eyes. Hey, that's not right. They are not my disciples. What on earth is this guy Wei Dongliu doing? Chapter 194. Set off. Searching for the Feian sword. Of course, there are reasons why Wei Dongliu became a hands-off master. First of all, the ultimate goal of his character is not to carry forward the Wanfei Tongshuan men. It is to establish a network of contacts and information in the magic way to search for the whereabouts of the hell. Secondly, with the qualifications of Guo Jin and Wang Jun, it was almost impossible for them to embark on the path of cultivation. Wei Dongliu accepted them as apprentices with the purpose of asking them to help collect information, not to cultivate them into talents. Although it is cruel to say so, Wei Dongliu suspects that it is difficult for these two people to make a middle-grade golden elixir. I can only play the role of a guide. As for how high they can reach in the end, it depends on themselves. After entrusting the two disciples to Jianglin, Wei Dongliu set out to meet the people from Kunlin. The time agreed by Kunlin was the day before Qiu Changtai held the debate conference in Kunlin. It seems to be just a coincidence, but if you think about it carefully, it is already destined. Wei Dongliu flew west on his sword and arrived at the outskirts of Shining County. Unexpectedly, the Kunlin cultivator who contacted him here turned out to be an old acquaintance of Qiu Changtai, Zhu Chengqing, the chief of the Foundation building realm. As soon as they met, Wei Dongliu keenly noticed that the other party's spiritual consciousness fell directly on him. Spiritual consciousness detection is an extremely unfriendly behavior in the world of cultivation, because when fighting, the other party will be locked with spiritual consciousness, so many cultivators regard spiritual consciousness detection as a precursor to an upcoming attack. However, he did not react, because the spiritual consciousness came and went quickly, and it seemed that it was just confirming whether there were any traces of magic on him, that is, the remnants of turbid air. Who is come in? Zhu Chengqing asked coldly. A casual cultivator, Guo Jin. Wei Dongliu said with a bow. Zhu Chengqing nodded indifferently. There was no foul air on the other person, which meant that he was not practicing magic techniques, but he still said, since you were a casual cultivator, why did you collude with the Ingido demon cultivators? No collusion. Wei Dongliu would naturally not make such a low-level mistake of answering a preset question, but just said, someone asked me to send something to your sect through a connection and get the corresponding reward. Oh. Zhu Chengqing was slightly moved and asked meaningfully, isn't he afraid that you'll abscond with the money after completing the transaction? No. Wei Dongliu said calmly, because I won't. Why do you think so? Character. Zhu Chengqing. Even though he was knowledgeable, he had never met such a frank casual cultivator. Catching the jade slip thrown by Wei Dongliu, Zhu Chengqing probed his spiritual sense into it, carefully confirmed it, and frowned tightly. "Is the record in this material true?" he asked in a deep voice. "I don't know," Wei Dongliu said seriously. "I was only responsible for transferring the items, and I didn't look at the contents." Zhu Chengqing stared at him suspiciously, as if he wanted to see any signs of lying on his face, but finally gave up. He took out a storage bag from his sleeve and threw it over from a distance. Seeing Wei Dongliu catch it, Zhu Chengqing warned him again. "If you join the magic path in the future, you will be the enemy of our Kunlin." After saying that, he stepped on the sword light and went west. Wei Dongliu checked the contents of the storage bag, and for a moment he even had the urge to run away with the money. Of course, this identity cannot be used in such a way, so he just pondered for a while and carefully put it away. Back to the ruined temple in Mount Watai where he was last time, Wei Dongliu saw Yang waiting for him there. Friend Wei is indeed trustworthy. After counting the storage bags, Yang was immediately overjoyed and took out his share separately and handed it to him. "Thank you very much." "You're welcome." Wei Dongliu accepted the bag. "Wei is a sincere man." Yang hesitated for a long while before saying, "But, why do you have contact with the cultivators of the heavenly demon glow? What's the reason for this?" Wei Dongliu said in surprise. "It's not me who is spreading rumors." Yang tried to cover up the truth at first, and then said tactfully, "Everyone says that the internal fighting in my Engido is fierce, and there are many cases of the inferior conquering the superior, but who knows that the internal fighting in the heavenly demon glow is 100 times more cruel than that of my master. The heavenly demon colludes with the heavenly demon, and often captures the weakest disciples to sacrifice to the heavenly demon. As long as my Engido disciples do not seek to win, they can barely protect themselves. But there are no weak and mediocre cultivators in the heavenly demon glow, and each of them has survived through bloody storms." Wei Dongliu remained calm on the surface, but he was stunned in his heart. It really deserves to be the demon sect. The competitiveness of this sect is more fierce than that of the orthodox sect. Kunlun still maintains the one test determines your life. The in-ghost duo is already doing you can go up and down, and the Qianmo duo has actually started elimination of the last place. Jianglin became the last disciple and has the youngest generation. Logically, her strength should be the weakest. Yang continued, with a look of fear in his expression, "But since she entered the sect, 3 of her senior sisters have died, and the causes of death are different, but basically have nothing to do with her. I think that fellow Daoist Wei is a person worth making friends with." He waved his sleeves to summon a ball of grey-white sword light, stepped on the sword and rose into the air. "I also hope that fellow Daoist will not die unclearly one day, which makes me sigh and regret." Yang flew the sword and disappeared into the sky, and Wei Dongliu looked at the sky carefully for a long time, and suddenly smiled coldly. "Are you trying to sow discord? Do you think I will be fooled?" When he returned to shipping mounting, he saw Guo Jin and Wang Jun fighting with swords. Both of them were beginners who had just learned how to mobilize their true ki, and their flying swords were also crooked, which made Wei Dongliu completely unable to bear it. Jianglin had placed a small wooden bed by the lake, covered with thick cashmere and brocade, and was taking a comfortable nap. Above her head, pure sunlight seeped in from the narrow mountain crevices and sprinkled on her curled-up slender body, which made Wei Dongliu suddenly feel a kind of pity and care for her. Of course, with the Kunlun mirror, it must not be an illusion, but just the male's instinctive yearning for beauty. "Fellow Daoist Jiang." Wei Dongliu pushed the wooden bed. Jianglin rubbed her eyes in a daze. "I have to go out recently, so I'll trouble you to take care of my 2 disciples." Wei Dongliu said softly. "Well," Jianglin turned over and fell asleep again. After an unknown amount of time, she suddenly opened her eyes from the wooden bed. "Wait, what did he just say to me? He threw his disciple to me again." Which Jiang jumped off the bed and quickly flew out of the cave on her sword. She saw that the sky was high and the land was vast outside. Where was Wei Dongliu? Damn it. She looked uncertain, but she reached into the bag on her waist and took out a pale and rotten demon head. It floated in the center of her palm and muttered to herself. "The demons are invading the scene, and they are all showing their true colors. Find that bastard for me." After a while, the demon head suddenly giggled and turned his head to the south. Not long ago, Wei Dongliu was driving the Kaian Kung Universe Creation Tianu Divine Shuttle and rushed towards the south. In the South China Sea, there should be a golden whiskered turtle. King Ping Sword said to him, "This turtle is very large, and it forms an island of its own. It floats in the South China Sea, and the Feian sword is inserted in the center of its shell. Of course, this is information revealed to me by other sword spirits in the sword pool thousands of years ago. It has been a while since then, so there may be variables. You must be prepared. It's okay. Wei Dongliu said in a deep voice, we have to give it a try after all. Senior Sisterin gave up the frost sword for me, and I can't let her be without her natal sword forever. Chapter 195 Chasing to the South China Sea. In the South China Sea, judging from the appearance alone, the watercolor is more inclined to sky blue. The East China Sea is a deep blue. In terms of sea-dwelling monsters, the South China Sea also has few monsters of the size of the East China Sea, but there are obviously more of them in groups, and they are also more sensitive and aggressive. After shooting out the 5 elements divine light again, sweeping down a group of swordfish, Wei Dongliu cast his eyes into the distance and couldn't help but have a headache. Where is that golden-bearded turtle? This sea is so vast, how long would it take me to find it? It should be nearby. King Ping Sword said. It was nearby thousands of years ago. Wei Dongliu was a little speechless. This turtle is not rooted under its buttocks. How could it stay in the same place all the time? The golden-bearded turtle loves to eat South China Sea mackerel. Kunlun Mirror reminded, it's December now, and the mackerel school should be avoiding the cold in the ocean currents in the southern sea area. It's worthy at being a Jing. Wei Dongliu praised. If you're undecided about foreign affairs, you should ask a Jing. King Ping is not as knowledgeable as a Jin after all. After hovering in the air for a while, Wei Dongliu was about to move forward when he suddenly saw a stream of light coming from behind. Doyawei. Jing Monu stopped her momentum in front of him, and then showed a fake, relieved smile. Why haven't you come back for so long? I thought you were captured by Kunlun's people. The sincere words, coupled with her innocent expression, made Wei Dongliu murmur a little. Could it be that when I returned to Shipping Mountain, she was really sleeping too soundly and didn't hear what I said to her? Thank you for your concern, Doya. Wei Dongliu said with a wry smile. The trip to Kunlun was smooth. As for me coming here, it was to find a sword. Sword? Jianglin showed just the right amount of curiosity. Well, this sword is what I found for a good friend, and he also provided the information about the sword. Wei Dongliu replied. If it can make Doyawei's friend worry about it, I think it must be a 10th level immortal sword without a doubt. Jianglin said with a smile. No, he didn't use it for himself. He was also entrusted by someone. He just didn't have time to split himself, so he asked me to find the sword. Wei Dongliu said seriously. First, give Jingmo Envy a dose of vaccination. Let her know that the Feian sword was circled around and transferred several times before it finally came into Anzisu's hands, so as to put aside the relationship between Ling Yunpo and Wei Dongliu. Really? Jianglin laughed, and was secretly amazed in his heart. It sounds like a very complicated network of people. No wonder Wei Dongliu was born as a casual cultivator, but he can know a lot about the general situation of the world. It turns out that he knows many cultivators behind him. With such information about the immortal sword, is he from Penglai or Shushan? Mysterious character, synchronization value +1. Hearing the prompt of Kunlun Mirror, Wei Dongliu was also a little surprised. I just made up a reason. How can the synchronization value of the mysterious character also increase? This Jingmo NV, the ability to make up is so powerful, it's really cute. He looked at her meaningfully and said with a smile. Okay, since you're here, do you want to go with me or just leave? Jianglin thought quickly for a moment and smiled. Since we are here, it would be a pity if we leave now. Sure enough, Wei Dong smiled. Let's go, Jingdoya. This witch has an extraordinary curiosity. Whether it is her nature or a deliberate disguise, it can at least be used to predict her actions for the time being. The two continued to fly on the sword, and Wei Dongliu explained in detail the targets he was looking for in the hint given by the Kunlun Mirror. So that's it. As long as we find the South China Sea Swordfish School, we can follow that clues and find that clues of the golden whiskered turtle, right? Jianglin said with a smile, and secretly calculated in his heart, the South China Sea current. I know, it should be more than 1,000 miles south of here in the depths of the South China Sea. Thank you Jingdoya for leading the way. Wei Dongliu said happily. After an unknown amount of time, the two finally arrived in the depths of the South China Sea. The sun here was extremely blazing, not like winter at all. The seawater below also turned emerald green, and if you look closely, you can see a lot of seaweed floating in it. Jianglin looked down and said, the Spanish mackerel feeds on these seaweed fruits, so the golden-bearded turtle should be not far away, if it really exists. It should be in the nearby sea. Wei Dongliu naturally couldn't tell her that the news came from thousands of years ago, and smiled. If we return empty-handed in the end, it won't be a waste of Brother Jiang's trip. Brother Wei, you're too polite. Jianglin smiled and covered his mouth. After searching for about an hour, the two finally arrived at a small island. Is this the place? Jianglin circled over the island. Doesn't it look like a turtle? It's here. Wei Dongliu said with certainty. The golden-bearded turtle, with a shell that stretches 100 miles, carries soil to form a mounting, and floats back and forth across the ocean. If Doist Jiang wants to confirm, you can dive under the seawater to see if there are 4 legs and a head at the bottom of the island. No need, I naturally believe Doist fellow. Jianglin said indifferently, but he sneered in his heart. The golden-bearded turtle feeds on sea mackerels, so it usually buries its head under the sea. If I rashly go into the sea, what if it suddenly bites me? Seeing that she changed her words, Wei Dongliu pressed down the sword light and landed on the edge of a towering bamboo forest. The two of them had just circled over the island for a long time, and most of the area was already clear, except for this dense bamboo forest, with broken leaves swaying, and it was unclear what was inside. Moreover, the location covered by the bamboo forest happened to be the center of the entire island, which made Wei Dongliu even more suspicious. Jianglin followed him to land, and saw a dense bamboo forest in front of him. Each bamboo was almost 6 or 7 feet high, far exceeding the height that ordinary bamboo can grow. The bamboos were so densely distributed that it was almost difficult for people to pass. The two walked around the bamboo forest for a long time before they found a passable wild path. Walking into the bamboo forest, the scorching sun above their heads immediately disappeared, and the surroundings were all cool bamboo shade. Formation. Wei Dongliu suddenly said. Does fellow Daoist Wei recognize this formation? Jianglin asked hurriedly. Mustard Seed Zumi formation. Wei Dongliu replied that he had seen this formation in the library of the side hall of Gaiqiu in the past. It is just used to hide the secret realm Cave Heaven. Is there a secret realm here? Jianglin said in astonishment. It's hard to say. Wei Dongliu shook his head. The Mustard Seed Zumi formation can accommodate secret realms, not that it must accommodate secret realms. But it sounds like it should be a very advanced formation. Jianglin thought. At least it is at the level of Earth Immortals. Wei Dongliu replied. Earthly Immortals. Jianglin fell silent. There are 4 types of Immortals, namely Earthly Immortals, Heavenly Immortals, Golden Immortals and Dailyo Golden Immortals. Among them, Earthly Immortals have the lowest rank, the largest number, and the closest connection with the world of cultivation. They are called Land Immortals. Of course, even the lowest ranking Immortals cannot be dealt with by 2 cultivators of the Wafu rank. The rank of Earthly Immortals is just a rank, and it does not mean that the person who set up the formation is in the formation. Wei Dongliu saw that she had some concerns, so he comforted her. This formation itself has no attack capability, so don't worry too much. Seeing that he was calm and composed, Jianglin also calmed down. After thinking about it, it made sense. How could there be so many Land Immortals in this world? Can you meet them just by saying so? It is likely that they were set up a long time ago. Chapter 196. Suppressing Witch Jiang. The two continued to move forward into the bamboo forest, feeling the breeze on their faces, cool and pleasant. The wind blew through the broken leaves of the bamboo forest, like someone reciting scriptures in a low voice. The whisper was unpleasant to the ear. If it was Misha here, she would be terrified again, trembling with fear, wishing to hide in Luoyang's arms. But Witch Jiang was not afraid at all. She had seen more bizarre scenes than this. At this time, she just waved her rope sleeves as she walked, and strange black lights flew out from them, circling around and then quietly flew back. Is that the magic method used by the Heavenly Demon sect to drive the demon? Wei Dongliu asked casually. It's just a little trick. Jianglin smiled coquettishly. It's not worth mentioning. Seeing that she didn't want to say more, Wei Dongliu didn't ask, but said seriously. Did you find anything? The demons don't like this place. Jianglin replied, there is a kind of breath around here that makes them very dislike. Well, it's not the authentic magic of Chuan men, but it has a bit of the smell of a bald donkey. Buddhist monks? Wei Dongliu frowned secretly. I don't know which Buddhist sect they are from. Taoism is divided into Nanjie. Buddhism is naturally not a monolithic entity, but as a religious sect, it can be divided into radical left and conservative right. It emphasizes teaching students in accordance with their aptitude, that is, it attaches more importance to objective conditions than subjective will. People who don't have the qualifications to practice Taoism should not practice Taoism. Please go to farm, do business, study. Because they don't focus on expanding and preaching, they belong to the conservative right. Jie, however, advocates teaching without distinction, believing that man can conquer nature, and people with poor qualifications can also embark on the path of practice as long as they have a heart for Taoism. Therefore, they tend to accept as many disciples as possible and expand their influence, belonging to the radical left. Nowadays, the three pure ones of the orthodox sect are in full swing, while the 6 parts of the demon sect are suppressed. It can be said that the conservatives of Taoism have the upper hand. However, on the Buddhist side, the situation is completely the opposite. The Hinayana Buddhism emphasizes to save others, save yourself first, so it belongs to the conservative right. Mahayana Buddhism believes that all sentient beings can be saved, but it is a radical left. Since Hinayana Buddhism likes to hide from the world, almost all those who walk outside and deal with other sects are Mahayana Buddhism. If it is Hinayana Buddhism that lives in seclusion here, it is likely that Wei Donliu and Jianglin will not be paid attention to, which is equivalent to neither persecuting them nor providing any help. But if it is Mahayana Buddhism, depending on their attitude towards Jirizhao and Sanxiu, the specific situation is more variable. Wei Dongliu thought carefully, and continued to go deeper with Jiangmonu, and finally saw an ancient temple in front. Although it is an ancient temple, if you look closely, it should actually be a group of temples. As the two people approached, more buildings seemed to be squeezed out of the void and extended to the left and right. Jianglin was obviously hesitant, but Wei Donliu knew that this was the automatic change of the mustard seed Zumi formation, so he stepped onto the steps without hesitation and walked into the ancient temple. Seeing that he was so decisive, Jiangmonu could only grit her teeth and follow him, with the spell in her hand already prepared. Climbing the steps and crossing the main gate, the two saw that in the huge temple, there was only an old monk with his back to them, sitting on a cushion, hunched over, and beating a wooden fish rhythmically. On both sides were huge Buddha statues 2 or 3 feet high, with their heads almost level with the beams. What's even more strange is that these Buddha statues are not kind and benevolent, but all of them are happy, angry, sad, and joyful, showing the appearance of all living beings, with different expressions. Looking closely, those expressions are still extremely strange. Although the smiling Buddha statue is smiling, its eyebrows are drooping, as if forcing a smile. Although the crying Buddha statue is crying, the corners of its mouth are slightly raised, as if pretending to be sad. Even the angry Buddha statues, with their wide-open pupils, revealing difference and cruelty, in short, they all seem to be the faces of Buddha statues drawn by some soul craftsman. Well, I was probably wrong before, Wei Dongliu thought to himself. This is neither Mahayana Buddhism nor Hinayana Buddhism, but some kind of strange heresy. He once again set his eyes on the old monk in front of him and said to himself, "A jinn, scan it." If it is a spiritual scan, it may be detected by the other party, but there is no such problem when Kunlun Mirror takes action. A jinn, the eternal god. Buddha Candle Demon. Kunlun Mirror replied, the cultivation level is probably in the Demon King realm, the details are unknown. The so-called Buddha Candle Demon is a demon that turns into a demon from the long-burning lamp lit in the temple. It is a common phenomenon in many dilapidated temples. But it is rare to reach the Demon King realm, which is almost equivalent to the earthly immortal realm of cultivators. As his mind turned to this, Wei Dongliu saw the old monk in front of him suddenly stand up slowly, turn around and say, "It's rare to have visitors in the temple. Please forgive me for the poor hospitality." Before he finished speaking, the two saw a long table suddenly appeared in front of them, on which were 2 blue and white porcelain cups with plain flowers. The tea in the cups was fragrant and steaming. Wei Dongliu's eyes twitched. Although it was already Shan time, which was suitable for drinking tea, who would dare to drink this tea of unknown origin? Jianglin didn't dare to drink it either. She just stared at the old monk, hesitating whether to try it. As if he had sensed what she was thinking, the old monk suddenly raised his eyebrows and shouted at her, "What a devil! You almost got away with it, but you dared to sneak into my main hall openly." As soon as he finished speaking, Jianglin had already spread out his sleeves, and a few black lights rushed out from them, biting the old monk fiercely. The old monk had no expression on his face. He just stretched out his hand and flicked his fingers, and the black lights immediately collapsed. Jianglin's face changed drastically. While retreating quickly outside the hall, she shouted, "Immortal! Fellow Daoist Wei, hurry up!" Before she could escape from the main hall, a huge purple gold bowl fell from the sky, like a fly swatter hitting a bug, and slapped Jianglin to the ground. Fortunately, the old monk did not seem to use his full strength, so Witch Jing did not become a pool of meat paste. She was just half pressed by the bowl magic weapon, unable to move, revealing an uncertain expression. Strange, strange. The old monk murmured, walked to the side of the bowl, staring at the exhausted Witch Jing. You devil, how can you speak human language? And you know to remind your companions to escape? Master Jiangling was about to cry, tears streaming down her face, pleading, I was born in poverty. Although I have fallen into the devil's way, I often regret and feel self-pity. If the master is willing to have mercy on me, after I get out, I will immediately turn over a new leaf and seek the orthodox Christian men to convert to goodness. She swore again and begged softly, but the old monk ignored her. He just turned to look at Wei Dongliu and said, You're practicing orthodox Taoism. Who is this devil to you? Wei Dongliu hesitated slightly, his eyes noticed Jiangling who was pressed down by the bowl next to him, his face revealing pleading and misery. Indeed, if he admitted that he had any relationship with her, he might be regarded as an accomplice of the devil by the old monk and be killed together, but you are also a devil. What evil are you doing by pretending to be a human monk? After putting all the clues together, Wei Dongliu immediately made a conclusion and said, Doi Jing came here with me. We are old friends. If I offend you, please forgive me. The old monk was a little surprised to hear this, and Jiangling opened his cherry mouth slightly and looked at him with a complicated expression. How could you, oh, amateur? The old monk raised his palms and recited a verse. Once you lose your human body, it is difficult to recover. You stay in the human world temporarily, but you always live in hell. The endless suffering is caused by the three poisons. Love is entangled and bound. If you don't feel disgusted, when can you get rid of it? He shook his head and chanted, while sitting back on the cushion and started to knock the wooden fish. Chapter 197. Encountering the demon in the demon prison hall. The old monk was beating the wooden fish and chanting sutras. What's your name, senior? Wei Dongliu asked respectfully. The other party ignored him. Senior, are you practicing Mahana, Hinaina or Hinaina? Wei Dongliu asked again. The other party still ignored him. Although my companion practiced the devil's way, he is not an unforgivable person. Wei Dongliu advised carefully, if you can show some mercy, I will be very grateful. The other party still ignored him and just kept beating the wooden fish. Wei Dongliu turned around and gave a helpless look to the pitiful Jiangling. Jiangling responded with a sad look that said please. Wei Dongliu ignored her pleading eyes and was about to walk inside when he suddenly heard the old monk say, let her go, okay. But there are 2 points. First, she has too much karma. If you ask me to let her go, then this karma will be implicated on you, and you have to bear it. Second, you want to find that Feian sword, it is deep in the back hall. But the back hall has been occupied by demons. If you want to get the sword, you have to pass through there and copy the scriptures here first, otherwise you'll die if you enter. Wei Dongliu. He wanted to say something else, but the old monk just waved his hand, and immediately in front of him there was a desk, a chair, rice paper, a pen and ink, and a neatly arranged stack of thread-bound books. Well, you're an immortal, you have the final say. Wei Dongliu calmed down, sat down on the chair, and slowly ground the ink. Jiangling was half pressed under the bowl, sometimes looking at Wei Dongliu who was concentrating on writing, sometimes peeping at the old monk who was chanting scriptures and reciting Buddha's name. The initial panic of being trapped also calmed down, and his eyes were rolling around. Wei Dongliu copied a piece of rice paper and suddenly realized that something was wrong. This seemed not like a Buddhist scripture that talks about the principles and profound things, but rather a collection of fables composed of many short stories, mainly telling how the sixth heaven demon king Pozun fought with the Buddhist masters. According to the scriptures, from the sky upwards is the desire realm, which has 6 heavens, and the 6th heaven is called the heaven of transformation and freedom. The creatures in the desire realm are all proficient in the ability to change, which can stir up people's inner 6 desires, corrupt people's foundation, and make people fall unconsciously. They are the worst in the desire realm, so they are called heavenly demons. The highest point of the heaven of transformation is called the 6 desires peak, where the 6th demon king Bozun lives. He has 500 daughters, namely devil girls, and his demon messengers, demon sons, demon wives, demon men, husbands and women, who often go down to the world to disturb the monk's practice. After copying all the scriptures on the desk, Wei Dongliu has a very complete understanding of that creature demon and guessed what kind of demon is waiting for him in the back hall. Thank you, master. He stood up and bowed to the old monk sincerely. The old monk still ignored him. Wei Dongliu came to the arms bowl, half squatted down, and said to Jinglin, "Please wait here for a while, Jingdoya, I will be back soon." Jingmon wanted to say don't leave, but she was not a person who acted on impulse after all. She knew that she could only bet that the old monk would keep his promise, so she showed a flawless smile and said, "Doorway, just go, I can still hold on for a while." Well. Wei Dongliu stood up and walked towards the back of the hall. Turning around the main hall, the light around him suddenly became darker. The candlelight on the wall was swaying, and the terrain gradually extended downward. After a while, he came to a side hall with a plaque with 3 big characters on it. Prison Demon Hall. Wei Dongliu remained calm, told Arjun to help pay attention to the surrounding dangers, and then walked in. There was a big road in the middle, and on both sides were rows of Arhat statues, with their expressions either indifferent and silent, or frowning and glaring, holding alms bowls in their hands. There were continuous banging sounds in each bowl, as if something inside was hitting the inner wall. Maybe there was a demon imprisoned inside. Wei Dongliu suddenly had such a thought. After turning a few corners, he suddenly found himself a little lost. In this demon prison hall, there were statues of Arhats on both sides, and there were no landmark buildings, making it impossible to tell east, west, south, and north. Just as he was about to ask Arjun if he could make a small map or something to record all the routes he had taken, he saw a black mist suddenly appear in front of him. The mist came very quickly, and it covered his face in almost an instant. Wei Dongliu was not afraid of danger. He just pulled out the 5 elements divine light and brushed it lightly at the other party, and screams immediately rang in his ears. "Please spare my life, immortal." Seeing that the divine light was too powerful, the opponent decisively used the gecko tail breaking tactic, only separating a small group of mist to escape the coverage of the 5 elements divine light, and then rolling on the ground, and then transformed into a beautiful woman with a graceful figure, begging bigly. I was impatient and offended the immortal. I should be punished, but I dared to ask the immortal to spare my life. "Are you a demon?" Wei Dongliu retracted the divine light and asked lightly. "Yes." The woman said timidly, "My name is Alien. If the immortal is looking for something, I am willing to lead the way." "Alien?" Wei Dongliu frowned slightly, thinking of the scriptures he had copied before. It is said that the demon king of the 6th heaven, Po Yun, has 500 daughters, each of whom has the ability to transform into a myriad of forms. When they walk in the lower world, they often use the word Ai as their surname, so he asked, "Are you the daughter of the demon Po Yun?" Aileen immediately fell to the ground, trembling and said, "No, how can I be a princess? This name was not given by your majesty, but I just made it up at random." Wei Dongliu listened patiently, thinking that the demons were always cunning, and he didn't know whether it was true or it was deliberately lying to deceive him, so he continued to ask, "Why are you here?" Aileen said in a soft voice, "Reporting to the immortal, this place was the Jinnu island of the Jiri religion in the past. The immortals of the Jiri religion invited us celestial beings to come down to the lower world to enjoy music, singing and dancing here. Later, the war between Nan and Jiri occurred, and the Jinnu island also fell into the war. Some of us celestial beings fled back to the heaven, and the rest were unable to escape and were suppressed and imprisoned here by the powerful people of the Western religion. It has been more than 10,000 years since then. I just broke free from the seal by chance several hundred years ago, but I cannot leave this palace. I dared to offend the immortal before, and I also wanted to attach myself to the immortal to leave here, but I didn't really dare to have any bad thoughts. Please forgive me." Wei Dongliu listened to her explanation expressionlessly, thinking that this demon was really talking nonsense. How could I not know what the Jirija monks wanted to do with the demons? Most likely, the Jirija monks led the demons to the lower world, and then refined them into demons to drive them, just like what the demon Dro did today. Then in the battle between Nan and Jiri, Jinnu Island was captured by Nan Western sects, and these demons who did not have time to escape were suppressed here. Seeing that he looked indifferent, Aileen tentatively said, "If the immortal wants to find something here, I am willing to lead the way." "Can you read my thoughts?" Wei Dongliu suddenly glared. "That's not the case." Aileen fell down again. "Let the immortal know that I can only see some of your thoughts, just like boiling water in a copper furnace, you can see the curling steam above it. As for what the immortal is thinking, unless I dive into the sea of consciousness, I will not know it at all." After listening to her, Wei Dongliu thought, can the demons have such abilities? The scriptures don't mention it. It's just that the other party's words are true and false, and it's hard to say how many lies are mixed in. I won't believe them at all, just let it lead the way for me. Chapter 198. David by Demon Lord Aileen led the way in front, and Wei Dongliu walked behind. According to the other party, the bowl in the hand of the Arhat statue is the sealing instrument that imprisoned the demon. Along the way, Wei Dongliu saw that there were indeed a few bowls with a hole in the bottom, and the demons inside seemed to have escaped. I don't know how many demons have been released from this demon imprisonment hall. Well, this guy couldn't lead me into the encirclement, otherwise why didn't I meet a single demon that escaped along the way? Thinking of this, Wei Dongliu looked again, but found that there was nothing in front of him. Where was the shadow of Aileen? It's interesting that this demon can escape under my nose. Thinking of this, Wei Dongliu pulled the Kingpin sword out of his body, and also raised the Wang Yi Jin sword behind him. The two flying swords were suspended in the air at the same time, one black and one purple, with murderous aura. Then, he reversed the elimination of demons and purification of turbidity sutra, transforming all the Taoist essence in his body into pure demonic energy. His hair immediately turned red, his skin color deepened, flames flickered in his pupils, and his whole temperament began to become evil and unruly. Wei Dongliu's character talent Chaos Demon Body can be immune to the erosion and pollution effects of demonic energy, allowing it to flow freely in the body like Taoist essence. In this way, demonic energy can be used to deal with the demons, which can be regarded as fighting poison with poison. He poured demonic energy into the flying sword, and the 10,000 ghosts evil sword immediately cheered and jumped for joy, and even the soul fragments in the sword that were languishing also made a humming sound of satisfaction. Although the Kingpin sword is a Taoist flying sword, it does not seem to resist demonic energy. It was easily completely infiltrated by the demonic energy, and its spirituality was not affected at all. This Chaos Demon Body is quite interesting. Kingpin Sword Spirit said with a chuckle, if it is driven by demonic energy, the Taoist method on my sword will also change. I can practice with those demons later. No hurry. Wei Dongliu said coldly, the 10,000 ghosts evil sword will come first, and use them to test the sword. As the demonic energy circulated in his body, a certain cold and violent emotion began to infect his mind, causing Wei Dongliu's eyes to gradually turn cold. Could it be that this Chaos Demon Body can also affect the mind? Broken mirror, is this your illusion? How ridiculous. You should restrain it. Kunlun Mirror said helplessly, the demonic energy will indeed magnify your desires, but as long as you have a firm willpower, you can still resist it with reason. Wei Dongliu, I'm doing things, why do you, Broken Mirror, have to interfere? Wei Dongliu waved his robe sleeves and strode forward. Kunlun Mirror. Okay, yo-yo. Kingpin Sword said with a smile, the Demon Lord should be unbridled. It's meaningless if he is too rational, eh? Here it comes. As soon as it finished speaking, a black mist rushed out from behind the Arhat statue next to it, and attacked Wei Dongliu face to face from a very close distance. Wei Dongliu did not dodge or evade, but just raised his hand, and the Wang Yi Jin sword flew into his palm, and a burst of evil ghost cries came out from it. The black mist was originally very fast, and it suddenly stagnated in the air when it heard the sound. Wei Dongliu had already raised his sword and stabbed the mist again. Soul-stealing and soul-destroying thorn. This is the first forbidden method on the Wang Yi Jin sword, called soul-stealing and soul-destroying thorn. As long as it pierces into the opponent's body, it can inject soul poison and tear soul fragments from the opponent. The black mist was originally the invisible body of the demon, and was not affected by any soul poison, but it was sucked by the soul-stealing power of the 10,000 ghosts evil sword, and it was about to tear it into the sword. The demon was so frightened that he quickly split his body and used the gecko's tail-breaking strategy again. Wei Dongliu had expected this time. He put two fingers of his left hand forward and stabbed forward again in the shape of a sword. The 5 elements of divine light burst out from between his fingers, brushing the body that had escaped, and directly destroyed it on the spot. The 10,000 ghosts evil sword also sucked in all the remaining mist and made a satisfied sound that sounded like crying and laughing. Not satisfied. Wei Dongliu sneered, turning his head to look at the empty front, I haven't even used 1/10,000th of my strength, and the demon is only this capable. I'll give you another chance to besiege. If you don't dare to come out, I will find you and kill you one by one. The surroundings were still silent. Okay. Wei Dongliu said coldly, and stepped on the Kingpin sword. He actually flew the sword directly in the hall, turned into sword light and escaped. Farther away, countless demons were fleeing in panic, communicating with each other through their spiritual consciousness and wailing. The body is covered with demonic energy, it's a Ben-Rakshasa. That person is actually a Ben-Rakshasa. How did he get involved with such an evil? It's so painful. A demon also spoke up and said, why don't we do as he wishes and confuse him with great illusions, and then take the opportunity to attack him from both sides, invade his sea of consciousness, and seize his mind. Another demon retorted, do you know what a Rakshasa is? He is the wandering demon king in the Avitvi hell. His whole body is full of deep demonic energy. Once it is released, it will be dark and gloomy without the light of the sun and moon. If you get touched by even a little bit, your consciousness will stagnate and you will not be able to escape. You can only let him detain and torture you, suffer endlessly, and even the ghosts and gods will not be able to save you. Ordinary gods and humans can't even avoid him, but you still want to pounce on him. Go and seek death. As soon as he finished speaking, a dark red figure rushed out from the front. It was Wei Dongliu, with his hair and beard standing out and an evil aura. He said sinisterly, where are you going? You should all fall into my sword. Why are you running around? It's miserable. The demons shouted together and fled in all directions. Some of the demons were trapped by Wei Dongliu's 10,000 ghosts evil sword, and then all of them were sucked into the sword. More of them were panicking and rushing around, pushing down the surrounding Arhat statues, and overturning them. Most of them escaped in the blink of an eye. Wei Dongliu was about to take advantage of the victory to pursue, but suddenly he felt a coldness cover in his head, which made him much more sober. Don't be stupid again. Kunlun Mirror said in a low voice, these demons have been detained here for 10,000 years, and their fighting spirit has long been worn out. In addition, they mistake you for the demon king of Avitvi hell, so they just run away. If we really wait for them to recover and pounce on us together, do you think you can resist? You haven't even reached the Golden Core realm. As soon as these words came out, it was like a morning bell, and Wei Dongliu immediately realized it. His chaos demon body and 10,000 ghosts evil sword did restrain the demons, but they were not completely crushed. If these demons were not just running away, but attacked from all directions, he couldn't turn the 10,000 ghosts evil sword into millions and resist them one by one, right? It's better not to entangle with them, and find that Feian sword as soon as possible. Thinking of this, Wei Dongliu maintained an arrogant and unruly expression on his face, and rushed forward with his sword, and Kunlun Mirror also showed him the small map he had drawn. With the guidance of the small map, he continued to go deeper into the back hall, and finally saw a small hut in front of him. Chapter 199 Return to Shipping Mountain. There was a simple little hut in the demon prison hall. When Wei Dongliu walked into the hut, he saw the simple and elegant furnishings inside, as if a woman had lived here before. On the desk by the window, there was a white jade slip. After confirming that there were no traps on the jade slip, Wei Dongliu injected his spiritual consciousness into it. After scanning for a while, he saw that it contained a letter. I am the outer sect disciple of Jiri Zhao, Kada's Hinran. The battle between Chan Zhao and Jiri Zhao is almost hopeless. The 3 goddesses and the 10 heavenly kings died in battle one after another, and their souls were bound. I had to drive the Golden Ao to the south to avoid being robbed by Chan Zhao. In this hut, there are things left by the masters. A Feian sword, a purple gold gourd, a volume of the 9-bend yellow river formation, a Elxian pill, and a volume of the closed immortal technique. There are 108 demons outside, who are ferocious and vicious. It is impossible for anyone other than my Jiri Zhao disciples to break in. Since you were a junior disciple of Jiri Zhao, you should inherit the Jiri Zhao tradition and follow my last wish. When you have achieved success in your cultivation in the future, you will go to revenge Chan Zhao. Wei Dongliu finished reading the letter and thought to himself, Kada's Hinran, your last wish no longer needs me to fulfill. Chan Zhao is gone. He put the jade slip away and then looked around. The purple gold gourd was placed on the corner of the table. It was the magic weapon that alchemists dreamed of. It was said that any elixir placed in it could ensure that the medicinal properties would not be lost for thousands of years. It was equivalent to a portable refrigerator in the world of cultivation, which could be used by Luoyan. The Feian sword was hung on the wall by a red rope. Its appearance was dark red, and the sword was extremely sharp. There was no scabbard to put it in. Later, it was given to senior sister Anne. The 9-bend yellow river formation was recorded in a jade slip. Wei Dongliu carefully explored it and found that the amount of information was really huge, so he put it away for the time being and could arrange it in the Tongshuan Men station in the belly of Shipping Mountain later. As for the Confusion Immortal Pill and the Closed Immortal Technique, they are matching magic tools and refining and driving methods. Their function is to seal the opponent's true essence. This thing is too vulgar and does not conform to the style of Wei Mo Zun, so he took it to borrow flowers to offer to the Buddha and gave it to Jing Mo Envy. Of course, the closed immortal technique should also be memorized to avoid being tricked by Jiangmo Envy with the confusion immortal pill later. Wei Dongliu quickly put away his things, and then rushed forward on his sword. Before the demons could come to their senses, he had already rushed out of the demon prison hall. The terrain went up all the way, and the light around him became brighter. After returning to the main hall, Wei Dongliu saw that the old monk was still beating the wooden fish and chanting some mysterious mantra loudly. Du Suta, Bashilampo, Jianglin, who was pressed by the bowl, felt dizzy and almost had stars in her eyes. Suddenly, she saw Wei Dongliu rushing out from the back hall and immediately shouted in surprise, "Master! Since he has returned, can you let me go?" The old monk sighed, stood up, walked to Jiangmo Envy and squatted down, and said patiently, "Demon, listen to me chant the Dharani mantra 3,000 times, do you have any insights?" Insights? Jianglin was immediately stuck, and after a moment, she forced a smile and said, "Master is worthy at being a high monk. I seem to have gained something, but I can't describe it in words. I just feel it is mysterious." She chatted nonsense, and heard the old monk sigh, clasped his hands and said, "Amituba, you take care of yourself." He sat back on the mat, waved his sleeves, and the bowl immediately rose up, spinning in the air for several circles, getting smaller and smaller, and finally flew back into his sleeves. Then, the old monk hunched over, closed his eyes, and did not knock the wooden fish or recite Buddhist scriptures, but just sat in meditation silently. Jianglin got up in a panic, hurried over to pull Wei Dongliu's hand, and asked, "Did you get it?" "Yes." Wei Dongliu nodded. Go. Jianglin pulled out the sword light without saying anything, and the two of them escaped directly from the main hall and rushed into the bamboo forest. They saw that the temple behind them was getting smaller and smaller, and finally disappeared. After leaving the bamboo forest and returning to the sky above Jinlo Island, Jianglin finally breathed a sigh of relief. The feeling of being brutally suppressed by the Earth Immortal and having her life and death in the hands of others was so bad that she still felt scared now. "I have suffered so much injustice this time. If Wei Dongliu can't give me enough benefits, I will turn against him." Doyoe. Jianglin smiled sweetly. Doyo finally came back in time. If it was later, I might have been brainwashed by Buddhist scriptures and became a monk. If Doyo Jing is willing to convert to Buddhism, I believe he can also walk out of another sunny road. Wei Dongliu said meaningfully. Jianglin almost vomited blood when he heard this. This man is so good at making sarcastic remarks. Is that the sword that Doyo is looking for? She cast her eyes behind Wei Dongliu and saw two swords wrapped tightly with cloth strips. She didn't know which one was the Wangji Shi Jing sword and which one was the newly obtained sword. As for the appearance of the flying sword, the 5 elements, the rank, the Taoism, etc., she didn't know anything at all, which made Jianglin very depressed. Wei Dongliu smiled slightly, and didn't mention the flying sword. He just took out the box containing the Yaoxiandan and gave it to her together with the jade slip that recorded the Baishianju. "This is," Jianglin took it doubtfully, opened the box and looked at it, then used his spiritual sense to penetrate the jade slip, and his expression immediately became complicated. "Fellow Daoist Jing has been lying under the bowl for so long, it's time for some compensation," Wei Dongliu said with a smile. "Thank you, fellow Daoist," Jianglin said softly, knowing that this was the hush money Wei Dongliu gave her, asking her not to disclose this whereabouts to the outside world. The Immortal Confusion pill is an external pill magic weapon, which has a strong ability to seal the true essence, and it is even more difficult to resist with the Immortal Trap. If such a rare magic weapon can be given away at will, it can only mean that the guy in the back hall has probably made a lot of money. But the other party has always been mysterious, and asking him directly will definitely not get the answer, so he can only slowly test it later. Thinking of this, which Jing made up her mind and said with a smile, "I heard that there are a lot of demons in the back hall. I'm curious, how did fellow Daoist Wei deal with them?" "That's a long story." Wei Dongliu began to make up a story. The two chatted and flew their swords, talking and laughing all the way, with different thoughts, and finally returned to the Shenzhou continent and arrived at Shipping Mountain in the south of Taihang Mountain. After returning to the sect, Wei Dongliu checked the homework of the two apprentices. Now Guo Jin and Bang Jun have successfully passed the 3 levels and become disciples of the key refining stage. Their foundation in cultivation is also very solid, at least compared with their poor qualifications. Such a foundation is quite rare. At the key refining stage, the cultivators face 2 daily homework. One is to breed and refine key to improve their cultivation realm. The second is to practice swordsmanship to improve their combat capabilities. Guo Jin has a dull and honest personality, and he remembers what Wei Donliu said, the realm is the foundation. During the time when the two are away, he had already mastered the Zhaotian run. Wang Jun's mind was lively and lively, and he couldn't stand the loneliness of sitting in meditation and refining ki, but he practiced the sword riding technique to perfection. Fortunately, because they had not had a master to look after them for a long time, the two had developed a habit of helping each other. Guo Jin urged his junior sister to spend a certain amount of time every day to refine ki, while Wang Jun taught his senior brother many difficult points, and they were able to support themselves for a while. Very good. Wei Dongliu was quite satisfied with the two of them. If they continued like this, you would soon be able to become talents on your own. Jianglin was a little distracted, as if he saw the shadows of Wei Dongliu and himself in Guo Jin and Wang Jun. If he had not been found by the heavenly demon Dou at the beginning, but was with Wei Dongliu, although he had found a master who would not take care of him, he would have a peaceful and comfortable life. Dou Jiang. Wei Dongliu suddenly said. Ah. Jianglin woke up from the dream, and for a moment he thought that his mind was seen through, and was a little embarrassed. I'm going to explain the ki refining technique of our sect to my disciples. Wei Dongliu smiled and motioned her to leave quickly to avoid suspicion. Oh, then I'll leave first. Jianglin turned around, feeling a little unhappy again. No matter who I choose to be my senior brother, I won't choose him. You want to teach me, right? If you continue to ignore me, sooner or later I will make your disciple mine, and take all your skills. Chapter 200. Senior sister is always 20 years old. Shushan, King Luo Peak. Ling Yunpo found senior sister sitting in the backyard, and tied the long sword behind her, and said with a smile, Senior sister, please have a look. Flying sword? Zisu was drinking, and when she saw this, she put down her cup and took the Feian sword. Where did you get this fire-type flying sword, eh? She poured her true essence into it, refined it for a moment, and was immediately shocked. This doesn't seem to be an ordinary immortal sword. Could it be an 11th level immortal sword? Let me know. Seeing Zisu's surprised expression, Ling Yunpo smiled frankly. This is the Feian sword left over from ancient times. Originally there was a pair, but later one was destroyed in the Battle of Chanji, leaving only this one, and it happens to be a fire-type sword, so it can be my natal sword. Zisu stroked the sword spine for a moment, and felt the abundant fire-type true energy in it, so he put it back on the table and said with a smile, Junior brother, how about I use this sword in exchange for your Lei sword? Why? Ling Yunpo asked in surprise. Lei sword is a 10th level gold sword. Regardless of its attributes or grade, this Feian sword is more suitable for me. Zisu shook his head and said softly, I don't need such a good sword, the 10th level is enough. Ling Yunpo was speechless. This is the only sword you have. He pretended to be angry and stood up, saying indignantly, Sister, I'm only saying this because you are my sister. I hate minotaurs the most. Once you are my sword, you will be my sword for life. Sister, don't even think about taking my thunder sword. After saying that, he grabbed the Feian sword and stuck it into Zisu's hand without saying anything, then turned around and left. Zisu was stunned for a long time, and then her expression gradually became gentle. She stroked the lines on the Feian sword carefully, and the joy in her eyes spread like ripples. Because Wei Donliu had experienced too much time, the timelines of the other three characters were relatively backward, so Ling Yunpo also planned to stay in Shushan for a while before changing gears. Now the overall atmosphere of Shushan has calmed down from the last riot in the Demon Locking Tower, and external exchanges have gradually increased. From time to time, some casual swordsmen come to visit relatives and friends and exchange sword skills. Zisu has already refined the Feian sword into her body, but the attack of the fire-type flying sword is fierce and violent, so she still needs some time to adjust her fighting style. Ling Yunpo, after returning from the Locking Demon Tower to the water level, also unlocked the 3rd level of the Kingping sword, called North Wind Rolling White Feather. The water-type sword energy is transformed into goose feather snow, which falls from the sky endlessly, with great power of cutting and sharpening. Of course, in a swordsmanship contest with senior sister Am, it is not necessary to use the sword-based Taoist method. Ling Yunpo pinched the sword formula with his right hand, and the Kingping sword attacked swiftly, beating the Hanlai sword back again and again. It was just watching the sword path of the Hanlai sword, but it was only temporarily suppressed, and senior sister never lost the rhythm. He quietly pinched his left hand, and the Lei sword suddenly changed direction and tried to sneak attack, but was blocked by senior sister with the Feian sword. Sure enough, Ling Yunpo sighed in his heart. No matter how clever the opportunity is or how stealthily he attacks from, he will be blocked by senior sister and who seems to have been prepared. What is the problem? Actually, junior brother, Zisu suddenly said, the sneak attack tricks you think are very sophisticated have actually been used many times by many sword immortals. Really? Ling Yunpo seized the rhythm and attacked fiercely, but was easily defeated by Zisu. Then what should I do? Just accumulate experience steadily. Zisu replied. The two continued to fight hundreds of times before stopping to rest for a while. Senior sister, how about the new natal sword? Ling Yunpo asked with a smile. It's pretty good. Zisu said happily, it's lighter than the frost sword, but it's more agile and powerful, and its flexibility is also a level higher. After all, it's an 11th level immortal sword. Ling Yunpo joked, senior sister was planning to take my thunder sword at the beginning, what do you think now? What? The thunder sword shouted in his heart, Master, although I have to admit that your senior sister has good vision, the sword master cannot be easily replaced, otherwise it will damage the reputation of my thunder sword. What reputation can you have? Ling Yunpo sneered, only to hear Zisu explain, the Handlai sword is water-based, and the Feian sword is fire-based. Water and fire conflict with each other. If the two swords activate the sword magic at the same time, they will weaken each other and the power will be a little smaller. But if it is a gold-based flying sword, gold produces water, there will be no such concern. Ling Yunpo was silent for a moment, and said in annoyance, Senior sister, why didn't you say it earlier? If I had known, I would have gotten you a gold or wood-based flying sword. No need. Zisu smiled and said, after Master comes out of retreat, the frost sword will eventually be returned to Master. Then junior brother can get me a wood or earth flying sword. Well, it's better to be an earth sword, so that I can defend and attack with the Feian sword. Senior sister, what's wrong? Do you think I look like a flying sword forger? Ling Yunpo said helplessly, can I make any flying sword I want? I believe in junior brother's ability. Zisu covered his mouth and laughed, after all, it's only been 10 years, and junior brother has already risen to the waffle level. What, 10 years have passed? Ling Yunpo was slightly startled. For the pure life of immortal cultivators, the passage of time is often difficult to detect. But after Zisu reminded him, he suddenly realized that he had been in this world for 10 years. He went to the East Sea Palace in the 3rd year, and started the Locking Demon Tower in the 7th year. Now it has been 10 years. At this time, ordinary cultivators may not even have completed the key refining level, but he has already risen to the water level. But thinking carefully, due to the frequent loading of that Kunlun mirror, I have actually spent more than 30 years in this world. Kunlun, Shushan, and Penglai accounted for 30 years, and the rest of the time was in Watai Mountain. No matter which small vest I wore, when I was alone breathing and refining key, I practiced the secret key refining technique of the immortal world 9 heavens king way entering the realm mantra, so my cultivation was so rapid. It took more than 30 years to reach the water level, which was probably the level of a peerless genius. However, in the eyes of the outside world, it took only 10 years to reach the water level, which was no longer a genius, but a monster. Senior sister. Ling Yunpo asked tentatively, I reached the waffle level so quickly, don't you think it's strange, senior sister? It's not strange. Zisu shook her head and said, Master also took more than 30 years to reach the water level. Junior brother and master are both geniuses, unlike me, senior sister, I spent 60 years refining key and 10 years washing marrow before I barely entered the water level. Really? Ling Yunpo was a little embarrassed. It took them 30 years to reach the water level. They relied on the Kunlun mirror to cheat and used various cultivation talents and adventures to support themselves. The cheap master Sujian was the real genius. But, I remember that senior sister practiced in her hometown of Yangzhou and was brought back to Shushan by Sujian after she entered the water level. In addition, senior sister only stayed in Shushan for half a century, 30 years. In other words, senior sister is now 100 years old. Junior brother, what are you thinking about? Zisu asked doubtfully. Nothing. Ling Yunpo laughed hurriedly. What are you thinking about? Senior sister will always be a gentle and protective big sister at the age of 20. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.